time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Due Dissidence podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dibler, of course.
Hello.
How's everybody doing today? You all bring your popcorn today? I see we got a big crowd in here today. 609 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 312 over on Rumble. Please do smash that like button and smash that subscribe button over on YouTube and that follow button over on Rumble. How's it going over there, my friend? Ready? Ready to go? Ready for a fun one?
Yeah, I keep getting bothered by the place I was taking piano lessons. I only ever took lessons with a private teacher. Schools, like, it's not really good for adults, man, because like they want you to be there. Like, you can't just cancel lessons. They want you to make them up. Like, it's a pain in the ass.
Huh.
So they keep bothering me. Like, are you going to continue? I'm like, it doesn't really make sense.
I won $30 on scratch-off tickets the other day because Amanda sent me out to get Powerball. She figured you got to be in it to win it. You know, it's like $1 billion Powerball or something like that. You know, so I bought a couple scratch. She said, get a couple scratch-offs while you're there because we never gamble. We never do anything like that. And I was joking that, Augie may be our good luck charm for scratch-offs. And it turns out he was, because he was around. We won $30 on 2 scratch-offs. I won $25 on a win for life, and I won $5 on a crossword.
Yeah.
I only bring that up because I want to just make the point that all of my haters are just jealous of me for that. They can't stand the fact that I won $30 on scratch-off tickets. They're jealous losers. That's why I bring that up.
Well, man, you just can't allow that negativity in your head.
Right.
Can't allow that in your mind. Because then you get negative. That's what they want, man. They want to drag you down to their level.
Exactly. Got to stay focused and stay positive. That's what it's all about. All right, everybody. We are going to get right on with it. We know what you're all here to see, and we're not going to make you wait the whole show for it. But we want to start out with something a little funnier, a little nicer, a little lighter. And by that,
that'll make you a little verklempt.
Right, exactly. And by that, of course, we mean the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Yes.
Some light fare to start the show off. So let's jump right on into this here. We all remember this headline in the Wall Street Journal. It came out in mid-July. Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him bawdy letters for a 50th birthday album. One was from Donald Trump. Made big news at the time. No such image of the letter was produced, and so Donald Trump vehemently denied it to the Wall Street Journal in advance of them running the story. So in an interview with the Journal on Tuesday evening, Trump denied writing the letter or drawing the picture. This is not me. This is a fake thing. It's a fake Wall Street Journal story, he said. I love how he says that to the Wall Street Journal. This is a fake Wall Street Journal story. I never wrote a picture in my life. I don't draw pictures of women, he said. It's not my language. It's not my words. And yes, the chorus of chuds backed him on this. I cannot wait until you, meaning the Wall Street Journal, are sued into oblivion. Zero journalistic integrity. Didn't even bother to say allegedly. Are you guys trying to get sued? Paul Zapula, you're going to be sued into bankruptcy. Blah, blah, blah. The Hodge twins. No, I'm not buying this bullshit. Gunther Riegelman, of course. Bye-bye, Wall Street Journal. You're done. And sure enough, Donald Trump did end up suing the Wall Street Journal for $10 billion over that story. And here he was on July 28th, doubling down on the claim that, no, he drew no such thing.
I think I heard you say something the other day that the drawing that was the subject of the Wall Street Journal report.
I don't do drawings. I'm not a drawing person.
You think it was fraudulent?
I don't do drawings. Sometimes people would say, would you draw a building? And I'll draw 4 lines and a little roof, for a charity stuff. But I'm not a drawing person. I don't do drawings of women. That I can tell you.
That I can tell you. I don't do drawings of women. Well, what did we say at the time?
Sometimes men.
Yeah,
Men
exactly.
like you see in Europe though. I don't do they do like the little weenie cocktail weenies. I do the big ones.
Yeah.
When I draw a man, I give him a big slog hanging
I
down
draw a
to
real
scare
man.
all the women.
I do it the Arnold Palmer. That's what I call it. That's what I call my art series.
The real Arnold Palmer. He was a real man.
He was a real man. There's a whole lot of man, that man. Well, what did we say at the time? We said, hey, this sounds like a real story. The poem, if you will, or the one-act play, if you will, that was written as the text of the piece just sounds a little too bizarre to make up. The whole thing just sounds too bizarre to make up. And they are betting their integrity on it. And we didn't think that they would report that unless a letter existed as they describe it. Sure enough, here it is. Oversight Dems say, we got Trump's birthday note to Jeffrey Epstein that the president said doesn't exist. Trump talks about a wonderful secret the two of them shared. What is he hiding? Release the files. That's right. And there it is. There is the close-up of it. There must be more to life than having everything is the voiceover to start it off. Most of the people have seen this before, but I'll read it again.
Some
yes, there
creepy
is,
shit.
but I won't tell you what it is, says Donald Trump, nor will I. Shall I also know since I also know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, what does it say there? Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Now, people have pointed out that enigmas is an anagram for gamines, which means young girl. As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Sorry, I should have enlarged that. But I forgot I should probably read it. And there it is, signed Donald. First name only, which the Chuds tried to make a big controversy out of. Now, before we get on with the rest of the story, we do want to address the elephant in the room, which is, well, this is extremely worse than the fake. So there was a fake version of the story, an imagined rendering of what this may have looked like. And I don't even want to show it on YouTube because it could, trip a nudity policy and get demonetized or whatever. But, the imagined rendering of the story was of a Zoftic, voluptuous woman with, quite a pair on her. This is, shall we say, not that. So I'm glad Pink Saguaro Farm said it. An adult woman's body does not look like this. This is a drawing by Trump of a naked child. Yeah, that is a girl. That is not a woman's body. That's a girl. Those are not fully formed. Like that is not an adult woman drawing.
I understand some people are claiming that Hillary Swank visited the island.
Yeah, that's the
So
I didn't know
maybe.
that Elliot Page was a victim in the Epstein case. Yes, but yeah, that is not a drawing of a fully grown woman. I don't buy that for a second. So it gets a little creepier here. Epstein birthday letter with Trump's signature revealed. So the Wall Street Journal, of course, they had seen this before. This came from Epstein's estate. So let's talk a little bit about how this came to be public and finally revealed in image form. Lawyers for Jeffrey Epstein's estate have given Congress a copy of the birthday book put together for the financier's 50th birthday, which includes a letter with President Trump's signature that he has said doesn't exist. Okay, so this came from Epstein's estate and Epstein's lawyers. On Monday, House Oversight Committee members confirmed that they received a copy of the birthday book, including the letter bearing Trump's signature and a second letter that references Trump with a crude joke about a woman from another Epstein associate. We're going to get to that in a couple minutes. Trump has denied writing the letter or drawing the picture, calling it a fake thing. He also filed a lawsuit against the Journal's reporters, Journal publisher Dow Jones, parent company News Corp, and executives, alleging defamation and saying the letter was non-existent. A Dow Jones spokeswoman said, "We have full confidence in the rigor and accuracy, of our reporting." Carolyn Leavitt, White House press secretary, said in a social media post that Trump's legal team will continue to pursue its defamation case against the Journal. As I have said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it, Leavitt said in a post on X. So yeah, that was recent. That was last night. Carolyn Leavitt tweeted this out. The latest piece, published by the Wall Street Journal, which shows the image, proves this entire birthday card story is false. As I have said all along, it's very clear President Trump did not draw this picture and he did not sign it. President Trump's legal team will continue to aggressively pursue litigation. Furthermore, the reporter, Joe Palazzolo, who wrote this hatchet job, reached out for comment at the exact same minute he published his story, giving us no time to respond. This is fake news to perpetuate the Democrat Epstein hoax.
They're just going to stay with that message.
They're going to stick with it. Here's JD, I don't give a shit about war crimes Vance, backing her up. The Democrats don't care about Epstein. They don't even care about his victims. That's why they were silent about it for years. The only thing they care about is concocting another fake scandal like Russiagate to smear President Trump with lies. No one is falling for this BS. To which Gen X girl makes a very good point. Well, now that Dems care, Trumpers are taking their place. Exactly. Exactly. When it was the Republicans making a stink, the Democrats were pretending it didn't exist. And now that Democrats are making a stink, Republicans are pretending that it's all a hoax. So tell me which of these parties is superior to the other. It's not much of a point that JD made there. Congrats. Useless government per usual. Exactly. Well said, Gen X girl. Skip Goodman replies, come on, bro. Here's JD Vance before he ran for Senate, singing a very different tune about the Epstein files. Or perhaps this was while he was deciding to run. This was 2021. What possible interest would the U.S. government have in keeping Epstein's clients secret? Oh, if you're a journalist and you're not asking questions about this case, you should be ashamed of yourself. What purpose do you even serve? I'm sure there's a middle-class teenager somewhere who could use some harassing right now, but maybe try and do your job once in a while. Of course, singing a very different tune right now. Back to the article. Allies of Trump have long sought release of Epstein-related materials, but the Justice Department said in July that there isn't a client list of people who participated in Epstein's trafficking of young girls, and new files wouldn't be released. That determination triggered an uproar among some of Trump's prominent supporters and efforts in Congress to seek the records. Lawyers for the co-executors of Epstein's estate turned over a copy of the birthday book on Monday in response to what? A subpoena from who? Representative James Comer, Republican for Kentucky. Man, these Kentucky Republicans are really causing Trump a lot of headaches. Between Massey and Rand Paul and Comer. What's wrong with Kentucky? What are they putting in the bourbon down there? The chair of the House Oversight Committee. In a July 25th letter to the Epstein estate's lawyers, Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat from California, and Ro Khanna had pressed the estate to release the book. This is where it gets even creepier. The Epstein estate also turned over another letter from the book that references Trump. It came from business. Now, there's no photo of this, as I understand, but perhaps there will be. It came from businessman and longtime Mar-a-Lago member Joel Pashkow, who made a crude joke about a woman whom Epstein and Trump each courted in the 90s, according to court testimony and people familiar with the matter. The Pashkow letter included a photo of a poster board-sized check for $22,500, which had been mocked up to appear that it was sent from Trump to Epstein. Beneath it, a caption said, Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women sells fully depreciated woman's name to Donald Trump for $22,500. The woman's name is redacted in the image. Now, what have we seen? We've seen in the past reports that Epstein would have sex with these women when they were underage, and then when they came of age, he would pass them off to his friends. That's what we've heard. So perhaps that is what the very crude, fully depreciated phrase means, that Epstein deflowered this woman and now is passing her to Donald Trump for the price. That could very well be the meaning of that. But let me just read that caption again. Jeffrey showing early talents with money and women sells fully depreciated woman to Donald Trump for $22,500. Talk about going from bad to worse. That is some creepy shit right there. The woman, a wealthy European then in her 20s, severed all ties with Epstein around 1997 and had no romantic relationship with either Epstein or Trump, her lawyer said. The lawyer added that she doesn't know Pashkow and has no knowledge of the letter naming her, which he called a disgusting and deeply disturbing hoax. He should be Trump's lawyer. Pashkow and his attorney didn't respond to requests for comment. The woman became a point of tension in Epstein and Trump's friendship, according to people who were close to Epstein. Epstein told these people that he believed the woman enjoyed spending time with him over Trump and that he was bitter when she ended up choosing to go out with Trump. So it's not a huge surprise that the woman denies it. She probably wants to stay out of trouble, doesn't want another Virginia Giuffre job. So that, to me, is not compelling evidence that that letter was a hoax. The first document reported on by the Wall Street Journal ended up being validated, and we have no reason to believe that this second one is not valid, of course. So how did the chuds respond to this? Well, in predictable fashion, I would say. So here's Charlie Kirk. Does the below from the Wall Street Journal look like this actual signature from the president? I don't think so at all. Fake. So they are contending that this document here on the left is a fake because the signature does not match the current signature. Just to give you a close-up here, Donald versus Donald Trump. Now, of course, the absurdity to compare the signature on a birthday card to a presidential signature or a business signature is ridiculous. When I sign my name when I'm filling out paperwork at the doctor, I, of course, sign it differently than I sign a Christmas card to my wife or my kid or something like that. Well, my kid, I don't sign my name. I say daddy, obviously. But for my wife, I sign it my name. But it's different from a business signature, obviously. Okay? So Gen X girl points out, looks the same. Yeah, looks the same because when you add context, you could see, as Harry Sisson did here, where we'll see in close-up, you're such a lying sack of shit. Here is the signature on the Epstein letter with another signature in 1995, and Gen X girl listed, as you could see there, 5 signatures which look very, very similar to the signature in question. Here's even more. The Great Gig in the Sky says, try again, you pedo sympathizer, with numerous examples of a very, very, very similar signature, complete with that tail on the D. Benny Johnson, here he is, quote tweeting.
Benny in the closet.
Benny in the closet. He is right there with Charlie on this. Excellent signature comparison. Same year. What a faceplant this is. So he is quote tweeting this guy here, Aesthetica, Trump's authenticated signature in 1993, which is on the left, versus the signature from the fake letter purported to be from the same year. So first of all, as Bart Talafiero says, Epstein's 50th birthday was in 2003. They are not from the same year. They are 10 years apart, first of all. And second of all, if you actually look at the side-by-side comparison, on the left, he's signing his first and last name because that is a business letter written to Radio City Music Hall. So he's going to sign it his full name.
Right.
A birthday card to his friend, he's going to sign more casually Donald. So it's absurd to compare those two signatures, number one.
And if you look
two,
at the first part, it actually does look like
it. Does look pretty similar. Yes, in the first word, does look pretty similar. Exactly. So one, you can't compare those two signatures because the contexts are completely different. And two, he's wrong on the facts. Those are not from the same year. Those are 10 years apart. This is what these scumbags have been reduced to. It's kind of delicious to watch. Cat turd right there. Fake AF. Yep, they're going down with this ship.
I
Fake
don't
letter.
know, man. He's got the 3 laughed react emojis, so it's pretty convincing.
Yeah, right, exactly. MAGA Voice says, time to sue Wall Street Journal into bankruptcy. Look at that, fake and real. Now, the first signature is on a birthday card to his friend. This guy goes as far as to use his presidential signature as a point of comparison. Really? So you're going to use a presidential signature as a point to compare a signature on a birthday card? Yep, they are. Here's Eric Doherty. Holy shit, the Wall Street Journal just published that letter President Trump sent to Epstein, and it's not even his signature. Defamation. Pay up. Okay, now perhaps I'm forgetting some detail about Benny Johnson or MAGA Voice or who was the other character who we just said? Charlie Kirk. I'm sure they have their own kind of Pac-Man-like arrangements where they're getting money under the table.
Yeah.
We don't know that. That's something that, Bill
It's a
Maher used to have
reasonable assumption.
He used to have a phrase back when he was watchable. He used to do a segment. I don't know it, but I know it's true. Meaning I can't prove it, but I would bet everything I own that it's true. That they get money under the table. We know Eric Doherty gets money under the table. He was one of the guys named in the Sodagate thing.
He got stung in Sodagate, yeah.
For a few $100s, he pretended that corn syrup was good for you or whatever the fuck he said. Point is...
It's a freedom issue.
Yeah, it's a freedom issue.
It's freedom diabetes.
That's right. That's right. We just did a segment about David Pakman where he could go out and ignore Gaza. He could go out and just toe the party line for money. And it doesn't matter how stupid what he's saying is. He's saying it because he's getting paid to say it. He has to toe the party line in order for the check to clear. And that's that. That is very likely what is going on here. How can they be so stupid or so reckless with their reputation as to actually come out and insist that this document presented to the Oversight Committee and to the Wall Street Journal from the lawyers managing the estate of Jeffrey Epstein? They are going to say that this is a fake document based on comparisons between a 20-year-old signature on a friend's birthday card to Donald Trump's current presidential signature. How can you say something so absurd? Answer, because you are a whore who gets paid to say things so absurd. And it does not matter how crazy it is. This is your brand. This is the arrangement you have, both with your audience and from whoever supports you in ways that your audience doesn't. That is the only explanation for this, and it doesn't stop there. Matt Gaetz. Ugh, they continue to lie about President Trump. Are you joking? Are you joking? So there you have a pretty creepy piece of evidence having materialized. When, yes, don't tell me that is the body of a fully grown woman. That is a rough drawing of a prepubescent child. That's what that is, quite obviously. And then you have that other story, which is even creepier, which is even worse. About Trump buying a woman from Jeffrey Epstein for $22,000 who's been fully depreciated.
Yeah. Well, these guys are in like a nightmare scenario right now. Politics to a large extent in a capitalist society becomes a business like anything else, right? So you have all of these different parts of the animal are being used by different people for their livelihood. So these people take the MAGA movement and the Trump movement and the brand and the people who attach themselves to it, and they go to Alligator Alcatraz and they wear the hat. They can't have this. This is too much of a stake in the heart of their livelihood to connect Trump in this way to the core rationale for a large portion of MAGA, that you're going to defeat the satanic fans of the playground by electing Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump is pretty convincingly revealed to be one of those satanic fans of the playground that you were electing him to defeat. How do you do that? How do you do that? How do you negotiate that? It's the old Eddie Murphy joke. Deny it. Even if she has pictures, deny it. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. What else can they do? They cannot let that go. They can't ignore it. They certainly can't say, yes, he may be a fan of the playground, but hey, those ICE raids, they have to deny it. they're in a pickle, man. We were talking about this a little earlier. Everyone who hitched their star to this movement is in for a reckoning, man. They are in for a reckoning because it's coming apart in less than a year. What has he been in office? 8 months?
8 months, yeah.
8 months. The wheels are coming off pretty quick.
Yeah, this is about as brutal as it gets. I don't even have to finish this sentence. Everybody's going to know where I'm going. Could you imagine if Joe Biden, leave it right there, if a document came out like that with Joe Biden's
and
signature
look,
on it,
I'm not
or
saying
Bill
the
Clinton's
libs are any
signature on it?
better.
No,
I'm not
either.
saying the libs are any better. We talked about it, man. The Ashley Biden diary and all that. They didn't want to talk about that either. that's what I'm saying. It's a business.
It's
a
just
business
to be fair,
for everybody.
The Ashley Biden diary does not approach the same ballpark as this.
No,
like not even in the same fucking universe.
It does not.
As this.
But if you want to talk about an example of something they certainly would have talked about if it had been
of course.
Trump's daughter's diary.
Yeah, absolutely,
Both ends
That's
play
fair.
that game, and you look at somebody like Harry Sisson, he's going to do the same thing. Where if something like this came out about Joe Biden, depending on what the marching orders were from the top, sometimes the top will decide to do a sacrifice play.
Right.
They would just take their direction. But if the direction they got was deny it, they would do it. They would do it. They're not any better.
Of course. No, that's what Gen X girl said. So what you're basically proving, what J.D. Vance said is, hey, the Democrats don't care about this. Okay, well, now neither do you because the power has changed, right?
Exactly.
It just shows that you guys are both just absolutely craven sociopathic cults. That's all that proves. All right, so we're going to do a B section of this, which is fun as well. All right, so in our previous segment, we went over the fact that the image of Donald Trump's salacious birthday card to Jeffrey Epstein was revealed, and a lot of MAGA influencers decided they were going to deny the veracity of that document by doing these ridiculous signature comparisons. Eric Doherty, Matt Gaetz, you can watch the others in the previous segment. Now, I got to say, you look ridiculous denying the validity of the signature or the authenticity of the document. If you want to stick up for Trump, right, the way to do it is the way Michael Tracy does it, which is to say, mildly amusing letter. Otherwise, who cares? See, that's how it's done. You just say, it's so what? What's the big deal? He's got a picture of a 13-year-old's tits with a pedo poem written inside it.
It's not like Scungil hanging out or anything.
Right, exactly. Like, who cares? Mildly amusing. Otherwise, who cares? What is the significance of this even supposed to be? It proves Trump is a pedo or something? Give me a break. See, that's how you do damage control. Just be like, that's all right. So what? What's your point? What's creepy about drawing a prepubescent girl with a creepy poem inside it and giving it to the most notorious pedo of the 21st century when there are pictures and videos of you cajoling with him? Yeah, I mean, so what? So you're going to have to do a lot better than that. Is that the best you got? See you in court, motherfucker.
Where's the videos? I thought there were videos.
See that?
I don't see
That's
videos.
how you do it. That's how you do it. That's how it goes. That's how you work it if you're Michael Tracy. So, he got some responses to this, as you might imagine. So James Surowiecki says the significance, aside from being yet another piece of evidence about how similar Trump and Epstein were, is that Trump lied about the letter and claimed the Wall Street Journal had made it up. Yeah, obviously. So, Tracy, I agree that Trump, following a very well-established pattern of his, stubbornly and falsely denied media reporting that he regarded as politically detrimental to him. Beyond that, it doesn't establish anything about Trump's relationship with Epstein that wasn't already known. Oh, no? No. Drawing a prepubescent girl with a poem like that inside it, giving it to Jeffrey Epstein, along with a letter joking that he had bought a fully depreciated woman from him. No, that's not circumstantial evidence at all. That doesn't mean anything. That's a big nothing burger to Michael Tracy. Jesse Signal says Trump sued the Wall Street Journal for reporting its existence, claiming the whole thing was a fabrication, to which Tracy replies, what does it signify about the larger Epstein story or Trump's purported role in it? other than that Trump is extremely litigious, often reflexively and falsely denies things, and dislikes when the media reports information that could be used as political fodder against him. No,
does he have a law degree? Is he trying to get on Trump's legal team?
This is beyond political fodder. Like, this is, I would argue, legally implicating. I mean, I would say. So Jesse Signal says, "Oh, I actually don't even think there's a there to the sauciest Trump-Epstein's allegations. I bet people will be let down in the long run. But the existence of the newsletter is obviously newsworthy because he denied it existed." Tracy, I agree it's newsworthy in that respect. What I reject are these salacious extrapolations people are clearly desperate to make about how it supposedly shows Trump must be incriminated in something sinister and pedophilic. You reject salacious extrapolations from that. Once again, I'm sorry to repeat myself. From a drawing of a prepubescent girl with an extremely creepy poem written inside it, you reject salacious extrapolations from that. That is really bizarre. To the point where now I sincerely do have to ask, is he for real? Or is this like an Andy Kaufman shtick that he's on now?
Yeah.
Because, like, this is just pretty baffling. And here's some more evidence that might be the case. Here's Michael Tracy. Jeffrey really maintained his figure. Tweets that at midnight last night. Picture, like, you're clearly trolling there, are you not? You're clearly trolling right there. Sorry, my baby just got home. He'll be in the other room soon. You clearly are trolling there. You clearly don't mean that for real. So is any of this for real? Like, is it for real at this point? Or is this like a Kaufman shtick? Like, what is going on? I guess we have to see when we did our Taibbi piece, we did invite him to come on, and he responded. We'll get to that. I guess we should probably invite Tracy on to talk about this as well. I guess fair is fair. Thing is, Tracy is probably going to take us up on it since he says he'll go anywhere. If you accept, it will probably go down similarly to the way your talk with Greenwald went down. That is my guess. And I will say this. First of all, I'm not like prepared to like debate all of the, inner workings of a lot of the, accusations about Whitney Webb and things like that. I just don't have the knowledge for that. And I would say, like, look, and I said this to Lee when we had him on. I think I've said this with Russ on the air too. The Epstein story is one of the iceberg stories where most of the iceberg is underwater. You can't see it, right? You only see the 15% of it that is visible in the air. And then so much of it is unknown. Now, does Tracy potentially, in fact, does he likely have a point that whenever there's a story like this and there's so much unknown, a lot of people try to connect dots that they can't see and do so erroneously based on speculation? Do people overreach and try and let on that they know more than they can possibly know? And does most of that speculation end up being wrong? Sure, I think that's the case with 9/11 as someone who had suspicions about 9/11 since 2002. A lot of the truther community are people who insist that they have the one true version of events. And a lot of that speculation is wrong, like JFK. Sure. So, like, yeah, are there people who take speculation too far in ways that could embarrass themselves? Yeah, sure. I would grant you that. But this is beyond that. Now we actually see a drawing of a young girl with a creepy card written inside it with Donald Trump's signature, a document that he denied even existed, that apparently has been produced alongside a check for a fully depreciated woman from Trump to Epstein. And you're going to tell me that that is not evidence of a kind against Donald Trump? You're going to tell me that speculation about what that could mean is overblown? Like, I'm sorry, I have to ask, are you trolling or do you mean what you're saying? Because this seems to me like an Andy Kaufman routine at this point.
It does. And, it seems to be premised on the idea that the accusations are so outrageous they can't be true. You just have to look at Occam's razor. Like, the more of these things come in, the most likely explanation based on the preponderance of evidence is that, yeah, they were involved in activities we shall say.
Yeah.
Like it,
They
like
did bad things.
It's more of a stretch. You need to build more steps at this point to get to that's not what we're seeing here. Than to get to it is what we're seeing. Yeah, you're inverting the Occam's razor principle. Usually, in cases like this, you can make the argument the simplest explanation is usually the best. Well, the simplest explanation here is that they were fans of the playground together. And like when you actually look at the evidence, it seems like he's trying to suggest Occam's razor would go in the other direction, but it would not. It certainly would not. And with every piece of evidence like this that gets revealed, when do you say, my bad? All right, that's it. It's crossed the line into it's more plausible to believe it than not. And I think it's well crossed that line at this point.
Of course, you got people saying Epstein would, he would go beyond grooming the girls. He would actually commit sexual crimes with underage girls and then pass them off to friends. Right. So if that story about the check is real, and we have no reason to think that it isn't, how is that not evidence of, at the very least, Donald Trump's knowledge of what was going on? Right. Which even if you can't charge, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if you could charge someone for having knowledge of that. You could, maybe they're an accessory, maybe they're not. I'm sure Trump has money for a lawyer who could argue he isn't, whatever. He's the president of the United States. He's the most powerful person in the world. You're telling me it's not a story that this guy knew of this grooming and transfer situation and took advantage of it? Even if he didn't say that he knew of it, that's not a reflection of his character that is in the public interest to know about. You're going to say, well, this is a nothing burger. What the fuck did he say? He said, let me go back to the first one. What did he say here? Mildly amusing. Who cares? Like, really? Who cares? Who cares that the president wrote that? I mean, are you serious?
Well, and at that point, we got asked after we did the first Taibbi piece. So, some people were asking, why we haven't covered Tracy. And one of the reasons is at first it was really a story of Tracy v. Webb. And neither one of us are expert enough to litigate that. So why cover it if you don't have anything intelligent to say about it? Or you really look, Whitney's body of work is so wide and so deep that very few people are really qualified to litigate that. Now, certainly you could just do an interview without a point of view. Like you could do that, but you can't, if you don't really have that expertise, you can't really get into it with him as a debate. If you felt that was appropriate, maybe you would agree with him. I don't know. That's the point. This now is something that is a little more within our comfort zone to weigh in on because the facts are pretty clear. So at that point, we covered it today and we'll invite him to respond.
Yeah, if he wants to. I mean, we don't. I mean, we had interviewed Taibbi like 3 or 4 times. You had a little bit more of a relationship with him. With Tracy, we only interviewed him once. He's welcome to come on. I mean, like I said, I don't expect it'll go much different from the way it went with Greenwald.
Probably not.
But I mean, why not? If he's up for it. I meant to include a tweet in the slide that didn't make it there, but just to put a funny button on this, there was one guy who tweeted out a picture of this card, and he said 77 million Americans voted for this. What a stupid fucking country. That was good. I meant to include it. It must have gotten lost or accidentally deleted or taken out.
It happens.
Yeah, it happens sometimes, but that was a funny one. I wish that didn't happen. 77 million Americans voted for this. Oh, that is funny shit. That is funny stuff. All right, everybody. Well, that was the opening act. Michael Castillo, thanks for the $5 over on YouTube. Greta Thunberg's boat was struck. There have been no casualties reported. Free Palestine. Yes, we are getting to that, my friend. Michael Castillo also gave us, before the show started, $100. Let's give him his jank sound drop there, too. That's Michael's.
Yeah, I'll find it.
All right. Good afternoon, gentlemen. You both killed it in St. Louis. You were both very entertaining. Tucker's doing a series starting Thursday about 9/11. Jimmy's also having Nick Fuentes on his show tomorrow. Oh, he is having it on tomorrow. Oh, okay, 1 p.m.
Oh, he's on tomorrow.
Oh, okay, awesome. All right, cool. That'll be fun. I hope Kurt takes him to the woodshed. Free Palestine. Does Kurt not like him? Is that a thing? Is that a beef? I'm not sure.
Is that what's going on?
Me against you? What the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser?
Speaking of St. Louis, I had somebody I felt bad, man, after I kind of took a glancing swat at the Budweiser. I mean, I didn't even think of that as a St. Louis thing. That's just a worldwide acknowledgement of Budweiser is this just almost comically awful beer. You know, it's Duff beer. It's the real world Duff beer. But I felt kind of, you know, like I did do a lot of cool stuff in St. Louis. I guess the comedy is usually in the bad, so you don't talk about it. So I'll throw something together to show like some of the cool stuff I did. Probably I'll do like a little slideshow Sunday. Yeah, there's very cool City Museum, man. I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like City Museum. If you're ever in St. Louis, that was amazing. I've traveled, man. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah, we should put together more footage. We're starting to sort out some of the footage, so we'll start showing some more Uhuru footage in the coming days and weeks. We're now in the process of getting it saved and stored and backed up, which is a big process because of how big the files are. But once we get that going, we'll start teasing out some stuff because we have 9 hours with the chairman alone. So we have plenty of stuff to show you guys, which we're excited to share. Goo81 says apparently Qatar knew an attack was coming and allowed an airstrike to hit the Hamas headquarters in a civilian area. But when Iran hit U.S. base in Qatar, Qatar cried about sovereignty. Arabs wake up and revolt. Yeah, there's a lot of funny business there. There's a lot of funny business there, of course, as I'm sure you would agree. Oh, George, Matt Taibbi, that old so-and-so. Like the saying goes, don't have heroes because they're probably assholes. Thank you, George. Me. That's your quote. You're quoting yourself. There we go. That's what everybody should do on their super chats. They should put quote, end quote, and then me.
I was thinking about that the other day. You know, all of the directing heroes I had, I never got to meet because they all died before I would ever have gotten to meet them. Like Bob Fosse was long dead before I was in any position to meet them. But that has not been the case with this.
Right. That is true. That is true. Hey, dirtbags, I got my popcorn ready for DD's response to Taibbi's response to DD, shall we say, critique of Taibbi. This is so exciting. Is there a steel cage match on the horizon?
MMA, baby.
MMA. There you go. Abiding 71. How many consecutive days does it take for Tracy's and Taibbi Ratio's tweets to go from oath more Judaico to an outright fetish? There you go. Furrow's Queen. Has anyone noticed the world really started going to shit after Harambe? R.I.P. That is true. That is true. That's a good observation, Furrow's Queen. Appreciate that very much. T-Bone says, Aaron Mate asked Taibbi during the Twitter files discovery 2 years ago, did you see anything about censorship to pro-Palestinian posts? And Matt said no, which we all knew is BS. RB Ham says, I watched Matt and Walter yesterday. Oh, so did we, as you'll find out. What struck me was Matt claiming that the issue made him nervous. He alluded to 10-7 and intimated that Israel's collective punishment was to be expected. We got some of that. Which we'll get into right now. So we'll start. We each have a Taibbi segment today. And yet we did invite him on. Russell did email him. So you go ahead and take over in whatever order you want to do this.
Okay. As I mentioned with the first segment, I didn't even really want to do it. It was just to the point that I felt like we're doing a disservice to our audience. It felt like we're being dishonest to not cover it at that point with the Barry Weiss article, because if it were anybody else, we absolutely would cover it. You can't be talking about people's cowardice and then be like that. Although it's a huge story, and I mean it wouldn't have been cowardice. It's friendship or loyalty or acquaintanceship. Matt was always very nice to us, and the whole this whole kind of turn his reporting has taken. I guess I've been hoping, because here and there he would cover like Khalil or something. I was kind of hoping he would come back around, but it just seems like the Barry Weiss thing closes off that possibility, although one can hope. So we would have left it there, but Matt called me out by name in an article, and they went on to address this whole controversy on their racket show. What's it called? America This Week?
America This Week,
show?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Keaton's going to cover more of that.
More aptly titled America 5.5 years ago.
Yes. America 342 weeks ago.
America March 2019.
Yes. So this was Taibbi's response. He tweeted this out. In Gaza, does silence equal violence? The era of mandatory opinion once again rears its head. with the suggestion being essentially the wokies are coming. The wokies are insisting he have an opinion on something he doesn't have an opinion about.
So they had the same problem in 1942 in Germany. It was like this mandatory opinion that, you speak out against the camps and stuff,
Yeah, you had to say something.
Right.
You couldn't just be like, look, they like shiny black boots.
Yeah, right, exactly.
What does that have to do with me?
Yeah.
I'm over here covering the Tour de France.
Yeah.
What do you want from me?
Exactly.
Frank
Sinatra wouldn't play college campuses over there. You're too woke.
Yeah, he was notoriously woke.
Yeah.
That guy. So we're going to get into a few of the main points here. This wasn't laying laurels at the feet of Barry's Israel views. So he's saying the previous article that people were responding to was not glazing Barry Weiss. That it wasn't about that. It was just schadenfreude before dingbats like Oliver Darcy, whose breathless coverage made it seem like CEO David Ellison kidnapped the very virtue of news by hiring Barry after vowing not to politicize CBS. This is the same Darcy who in his CNN days asked Comcast to deplatform Newsmax, OAN, and Fox. He also once retweeted, "Your Substack newsletter won't make you a millionaire." That seemed funny to me, but hundreds of Palestine advocates online disagreed, racing to the more obvious explanation: conspiracy. I was a Mossad toady, an apologist for genocidal lying scum, either caping for a future CBS job, you'll get that FP paycheck eventually, free press, or horny AF. One of the helpful qualities of the progressive left in America is its willingness not just to list jokes you may not make, but to write down exactly what you may say in their place. So the nation couldn't turn a profit if gifted the world's oil supply is out. If you're going to make this point, Matt, you should probably be funnier with your jokes. But Barry Weiss is an apologist for genocide is correct. Don't ponder whose cock Stephen Colbert's mouth gets to holster now, but instead remember Barry Weiss is a Jewish supremacist agent for a foreign apartheid state, and so on. All right. So, I mean, all of it is pretty much like that. It's a lot of straw men. Most of the people who are really in the space are not wokies, not language police. Blumenthal, Aaron, Greenwald, us certainly do not fit those categories. But Matt doesn't seem to actually want to take on the actual argument and the actual points. He wants to argue with a woke straw man that's insisting that he bend the knee to some kind of prescribed set of precepts. People don't see a conspiracy because of this particular article. If anything, it's I think giving the benefit of the doubt to assume that Matt is compromised. I don't think anybody really wants to believe that he chose to go this way. So let's take a look. He mentions there David Ellison, right? But then he goes on his show to talk about how he doesn't really know anything about that, which is a key point here. Like, you can't really get upset with people thinking you shouldn't write an article where you're lacking major points and don't seem to know what you're talking about. Get very offended that you're getting called out for that, and then admit you have no idea what you're talking about. So let's take a look at that.
But he came from the New York Times,
Okay, so this is funny if you watch Matt's reaction. Walter Kern, I guess, didn't get the memo that the whole premise that Matt wants to go with is that Barry built up such an incredibly successful Substack that CBS had to come begging to her to help save them. That's what's so funny about this. Walter doesn't seem to have gotten the memo. He seems to actually be on the page that we were on. That, what's the difference? You got an establishment toady backed by oligarchs. It's just a different set of oligarchs from the traditional legacy media oligarchs. And you'll see Matt doesn't really back him up on this and pretty quickly changes the subject.
from the most successful Substack, came from the Wall Street Journal before that, Columbia University. This is called the channel. This is called the system. This is called the man. This is called how it works in the United States.
So everybody's making hay about Ellison having avowed pro-Israel views, and his father having some kind of ties to the IDF. I'm not really sure what that is. I'm not sure that that justifies Glenn calling Barry the Free Press state-run media, but
well, how could you possibly have that opinion if by your own admission you have no idea what you're talking about? You just admitted you don't know what you're talking about. So Matt, who has written extensively about journalism, about as extensively about the art and craft and ethics of journalism as anybody, why did you write an article about this without even knowing the basics of the CEO taking over the company? Like, this is just very basic stuff. It's not an expectation that you would know who cleans the copiers, right? It's kind of key to know who the guy taking over is and what his background is. So once again, as we did last time, I'm going to do some reporting for Matt. I'm going to show Matt how you do reporting again. Israel's biggest U.S. donor now owns CBS. Why, quote, while Oracle has signed multiple lucrative contracts with the Israeli National Security State, Ellison himself has personally bankrolled the Israeli Defense Forces, giving tens of millions of dollars to the Friends of the IDF, an organization that purchases equipment for the Israeli military. This included a $16.6 million pledge, the largest single donation the group has received, to build a new training facility for soldiers defending what he called our home. Our home. As Ellison explained, in my mind, there is no greater honor than supporting some of the bravest people in the world, and I thank Friends of the IDF for allowing us to celebrate and support these soldiers year after year. In my mind, there is no greater honor than supporting some of the bravest people in the world, and I thank we should do all we can to show these heroic soldiers that they are not alone. Safar Katz, the company's Israeli-American CEO, bluntly explained, "We are not flexible regarding our mission, and our commitment to Israel is second to none," she said, adding, "This is a free world, and I love my employees. And if they don't agree with our mission to support the state of Israel, then maybe we aren't the right company for them. Larry and I are publicly committed to Israel and devote personal time to the country, and no one should be surprised by that." Okay, so if you know that context, that he described Israel as his home, and then you find out that he's taken over CBS and is buying the Free Press, whose editor-in-chief, whose founder is notoriously fanatically Zionist, and putting her in charge of editorial content, there's no justification there for calling the Free Press state press. I mean, you've run around for years calling CNN that. You don't think there's at least as much justification for calling CBS under that CEO that, or the Free Press that? You would probably know that if you bothered to do basic research before you wrote the article. Nobody made Matt write that article. Nobody was sitting around saying, what does Matt Taibbi think about this? You chose to wade into something that you don't know anything about by choice. Now you're claiming that you don't want to cover Israel. Well, this is why you can't do that and remain a relevant journalist. You want to continue to litigate Twitter files and Russiagate and whatever the fuck you did 3 or 4 years ago, and appeal to the dwindling audience that's going to continue to pay you for that. That's fine. If you want to cover something like Barry Weiss, you cannot use the cop-out, I don't know about Israel. If you don't know about it, then don't talk about Barry Weiss. Nobody would have, nobody was coming for you. People had pretty much, by this time, become resigned to whatever's going on with you, you're just not in the game anymore, right? And then you put yourself in the game by writing this. So going back to the original article, so he's saying this was just making a little joke. He wasn't endorsing Barry Weiss. Well, you be the judge. She understood in a way her spineless, now complaining former colleagues from the mainstream press world never did, that in order to survive and retain her audience, she would need to take risks and bet on herself. After building a broad roster at the Free Press, she's taking $200 million offer to save desperate, near extinct CBS News. Naturally, every entitled fat keistered slob clogging the rolls of non-functional news organizations is crying she doesn't deserve it. How many of these plaintive mannequins denouncing her grift would have the guts to leave one of the cushiest jobs in print media and bet on themselves in the open market? 0.0%, as in not one. Now, if these are the jokes, I got to tell you, maybe you should look into a different line of work. I don't think you have a future as a nightclub comic if this is your idea of a funny article about the hypocrisies of the media, or if you consider that an article where you're not endorsing Barry Weiss. Now, as we got into in our other segment, which I guess we'll link in the comments, the original segment we did, the core premise that the Free Press is getting $100 to $200 million on the strength of the powerhouse organization, indie media organization that Barry Weiss built is bullshit. And Matt knows that's bullshit. At one point, he actually mentions Mark Andreessen as one of the investors, and you'll see right at the top of this video clip, he talks about the $15 million that they got in seed money, but he's completely incurious about what they got that money for, about why that money was given to what is essentially a blog.
That CBS and its new CEO, David Ellison, is he a Paramount CEO or doesn't matter. But apparently he's going to
doesn't
offer.
Matter. Doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter?
Buy the Free Press.
That's almost like journalism is the art of explaining those things to people. This is, digging into the second article, it's worse than the first. It's the opposite of journalism. You come away more ignorant than you were when you started. Right. The Daily Wire has more news value than Racket does at this point, because Daily Wire would not write an article about Barry Weiss without talking about Israel. They would defend it. So then, as a reader, you read that. If you don't agree with it, at least you got the information. Oh, hang on, they're tied to Israel. Let me look into that. And you could look at it in other sources. To read what Matt wrote, you wouldn't know that was going on. Right. You wouldn't. It's the opposite of journalism. It's not informing. It's misleading. It's misleading. You want to argue that's not the case? Well, maybe you should find out who the fuck David Ellison is. Maybe you should find out who Larry Ellison is. And if you don't want to do that, don't write the article. Don't write the article. What are you writing about something that you admit you know nothing about for?
Right. It's like writing a review of like Leni Riefenstahl's filmography. Yeah, and I heard she had something to do with Hitler or whatever. It's not important.
I heard about it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I heard something about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And
the Free Press, which is essentially a Substack.
It's a Substack. Yeah, that was started with $15 million in seed capital, which seems like a lot of money to me because you don't really need money to do a Substack, but whatever.
Whatever. Whatever. He starts actually going down a road that might be fruitful to his readers, but whatever.
You do need it if you're going to hire people, I guess.
That success was not our doing. That success that attracted the backing of these investors was the doing of the readers and the viewers of the Free Press. And I don't know that there is another, quote, alternative or semi-alternative news source that succeeded that, that astonishingly, that notably.
Only one way you can get like mind-numbingly barking rich in news media, and that is to sell a property, a small property, to a bigger property, right? And she did it, and it's
Good
not
for her.
surprising. That's that's all I'm saying.
Wow. Okay, so there, Walter going on there about what a successful organization is. We'll briefly touch on that. We got into it in more detail on Sunday. The idea that this is a great story because hey, she got barking rich and without at all interrogating why, but kind of intimating it. Well, you don't need that money to run a Substack. And as I said, he mentions Andreessen at one point in the video. So maybe as a journalist, you should look into who Andreessen is and why he would have invested in the free press. That would be a job of a journalist, not to glaze Barry Weiss and celebrate that she got barking rich. And gosh, I just don't have the business sense that Barry Weiss has. I mean, really, you didn't pedal your ass as well as Barry Weiss did. Synapse debacle cost users their life savings. Again, you can take a look at the article segment from Sunday if you want more on that. He makes his money robbing people of their life savings with dodgy fintech products. David Sachs, now the White House AI and crypto czar, part of the PayPal mafia, advisor to Elon Musk, reputedly one of the people who strongly urged him to buy X, a money-losing operation. Why would he do that except for control of media, control of the conversation? Exactly the kind of thing that Matt has spent a lot of his career talking about when it's corporate media. For some reason, he doesn't want to talk about it here. And then you have Sir Paul Marshall, the evangelical Christian who belongs to what, in my opinion, it sounds like a very creepy parish of the Church of England that's populated by very rich people like Russell Brand. And he's been on a spree buying up media outlets. Okay, well, it's pretty clear why these guys would give money to Barry Weiss. And to talk about this without getting into that, it's worse than bad journalism. It's misinforming your audience, not telling them this. But he kind of explains, maybe you be the judge, why this doesn't bother him. Maybe he's perfectly aware of it, but it doesn't bother him.
People who own media, as you say, they have opinions. This is like I was asked by Freddie Sayers at Unheard last week, who was upset about Elon and Elon's influence in England. And people who own Twitter, who own internet platforms, they have a point of view, and Elon is expressing his. What's where there's a line that is more upsetting for me is when government controls that.
But Matt, I thought you were his patsy too. Now here you are having to describe pointillistically your feelings about Barry Weiss. Wasn't it just yesterday that you were having to, vouch for your independence from Elon Musk, who, whose vile text messages to you I have seen and you have put on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, and who's sitting on my account such that there's a reason why that's another reason why I'm not going to be running CBS.
And before that,
there's almost like in a psychotherapy workshop, if they made you do a play showing the traits of borderline personality disorder. This is what yes, you're victims. You're victims. Everybody's falsely accusing you. I don't even know where Kern was going with that. But yeah, hey, he maybe is not disturbed by all these oligarchs with money in the free press because, according to what he's saying here, he doesn't mind that Elon has an editorial point of view and juices the algorithm on X accordingly. Well, at that point, Matt, should we just light your entire body of work on fire? because that's essentially the issue you've had with corporate media, hasn't it? Which you've written so incisively about, that there's big money that affects editorial decisions. Those are private companies. Those are not government companies. What do you think? This government, are you saying what bothers you is if the government, a la Twitter files, is in bed with the private organization? You think this fucking crew is not in bed with that crew? With the David Sachs works in the White House. He's one of the investors in the Free Press. So even if what you're arguing is you just don't like where the two intersect, well, they clearly intersect in this case. So what you're arguing is this should go in the garbage, because everything you're complaining about here applies to this deal that you seem to think is the best thing since sliced bread. Anything, Keaton, before I go on?
No, go ahead.
Okay. The core premise, as we showed the other night, I will briefly touch on. Glenn says it concisely. I'll just read what he said about it. Most of the videos of the Free Press, including Barry's podcast, barely break 10,000 views on YouTube. On a scale of 1 to 10 for online impact, this might be a 3. Whatever the 200 million is for, it's not for the real value of her blog, but for Barry's role in spouting Israel propaganda. Now, Matt seems to take exception to that. He called out Glenn specifically, saying it's unfair to call it state media. Okay, so make the case. Make the case. Because on the facts, which you do not present to your audience in what I would consider a real violation of the contract you have with the people giving you money to do the best reporting you can with the resources available to you. This didn't take a lot. We don't have a staff. Just Google. It's a little Googling. Wasn't hard to find that they have no views. They have no views. Look at this. They have no views. This is their YouTube. This is their articles. Hardly any comments. Hardly any likes. So this core premise that she built up this great media outlet and CBS wants her to come in and save them with her indie perspective is total bullshit. This is clearly a story about oligarchs largely from Silicon Valley, but not exclusively, partly from the PayPal Mafia network, buying up indie media outlets and getting one of their own into the Death Star of legacy media. Now, if you wanted to write an article talking about how ironic that is, as you actually did with Donald Trump, talking about using that metaphor, that's where I'm getting it from, as he figured out the vulnerability in the Death Star of the American press that they couldn't help but give him attention, right? If you wanted to write an article like, well, in the end, Barry Weiss negotiated this landscape of oligarchs trying to control the media and worked her way right back into legacy media, that's valid. That's valid. That's completely in keeping with the work Matt has always done, but that's not the article he actually wrote. He wrote an article that is completely misinforming his audience and that does not discuss any of those factors and misleads them into thinking the free press is successful on its merits, which it is not, as you can clearly see. Going on. Israel supporters will argue with you. They will get defensive on days like today. I don't know what it was about yesterday. And lecture you about the history leading up to their decision. American advocates for Palestine don't bother arguing. Since they don't admit the possibility of honest disagreement, they move straight to the corrupt reasons you must have for failing to already embrace their view. Payoffs, blackmail, cowardice, or submission to the great Jewish conspiracy. That once forbidden last idea they suggest with the giddiness of teenagers who have just discovered oral sex. Wow, that's quite a turn of phrase, Matt. Is the next line going to be they should be shot into space? So Max Blumenthal responded to this. Hi, Matt. You just wrote Israel supporters will argue with you. They will get defensive on days like today and lecture you about the history leading up to their decision. American advocates for Palestine don't bother arguing. Would you like to argue this point and others you've made about the Israel-Palestine debate live at the Gray Zone, maybe Aaron will join too. This is part of what's really so off-putting about this entire victim routine. Do you know how many people, I'm sure, known and unknown, have invited Matt to come debate this? Pete Hagar, we know, invited him. We invited him, which to be fair is still open. He didn't completely decline it. So we will see. I will be surprised. And there was no response to Matt. Again, to be fair, to Max rather. To be fair, we don't know. Maybe they're negotiating behind the scenes. There is quite a wealth of people who would be happy to go back and forth with Matt on this, to present this, being somebody who we know has repeatedly either declined appearances where he was asked to talk about this or made it a condition of an appearance that this would not be raised. To come out and talk about, no, they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, we don't want to argue, right?
That's pretty sleazy. That's pretty sleazy. As somebody who has gone so far out of their way to avoid having that conversation. Anything before I go on?
Well, no, I mean, I think you have it. When it came up on, Savvy, he was reluctant to address it. And yeah, I mean, he told us off the record he was reluctant to address it. So, if there's anyone who's not up for a conversation, it's certainly not the pro-Palestine side. But again,
very happy to debate that.
This is all just a way to conflate, which is very ironic and very sleazy, I must say, the pro-Palestine movement with the woke movement. Which is funny because your whole article, which you wrote just after October 7th, was how the fact that a lot of these students who were raised, or not raised, but who were, if you want to say indoctrinated, fine, into this woke discourse at these universities, they ran into this very sort of tense conflict with the people who taught them that, because along came a scenario where anti-colonial theory actually applied.
Came into practice,
and
yes.
The professors who taught the students about such theory didn't want them applying that knowledge to this event. That was the whole point of your article.
Right.
He obviously liked that article enough to share that article, which we were very grateful for at the time and still are. I think about a third of our Substack subscribers, not paid, but a third of our mailing list came from that article because he shared it. He obviously liked that enough and saw that as a good point that, hey, you know what?
Right.
This is a situation where wokeness actually applies to the real world. And all of a sudden, the people who taught the kids to be woke are not so woke. And now he's trying to conflate the sort of trivialness of the woke movement with the pro-Palestine movement, which I don't think is a connection he even sees, really.
Yeah, it's all the intellectual dark web, John McWhorter bullshit.
Yeah.
It's all about grievance, and increasingly it just looks like the grievance of old men, especially when you watch that freaking show. So here's where it gets to yours truly. Russell Dobler of Due Dissidence, who I like you too, Matt. That's why this hurts me. But deems me scum for not embracing his issue. I never said that. If you watched my segment, I went out of my way to talk about what a nice man he's always been when I've met him. Put it this way after the Barry column. This really breaks my heart. Matt is officially into his Vegas lounge act years. I don't get it. Do they have pictures of him next to a dead hooker in St. Petersburg? The irony is, I'd bet Russell initially became a fan of mine because I think for myself and don't regurgitate bromides about threats to the region or assault camps or the existential threat to democracy or whatever the official propaganda line of the day was at the time. Now, though, it breaks his heart that I'm not speaking the magic words, genocide, Zionist, settler colonialism, etc. I don't talk about hang gliding terrorists or hostages either, but no matter. Left activist cliches are better than Pentagon versions, so failure to salute them makes me a genocide apologist with a dead hooker on my conscience. Well, okay, we'll address some of this. Nobody is accusing you of not using the right words or not showing obeisance to popular ideas or sloganeering. I mean, a lot of what you just listed there, we don't really use ourselves, probably because being understanding that some portions of the social justice left can be counterproductive with that kind of sloganeering. We're not really inclined to it. We're always trying to kind of reach out to people who might be put off by that. I would say that's a pretty good description of our audience. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to interject. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Nick Fuentes are calling this a genocide.
Right.
And we've and many in the pro-Palestine space, even though our politics are far to their left on 99 out of 100 things, we don't bite their hand when they say, we don't say, get out of our movement. You don't say the right words. No, not at all.
Certainly not. Certainly not.
No.
Look, Matt wants to make this a litigation of the wokies because it's all he can do, really. He's put himself in a box where he can't address what is arguably the most animating issue of the historical moment, and one that touches on pretty much anything that you're going to cover, which is why he just wants to keep covering stories from 3 and 4 years ago where he can go into a little safe space and not have to deal with this issue. As we will see, the basic idea that he never covered it or doesn't understand it is just a lie. And the reason that people think you're compromised is because you're lying about never having covered it. You're lying about not knowing enough about it. So at that point, people have to wonder, why are you lying about that? And if anything, the idea that you're compromised is better than arguing you just decided to be irrelevant. You just decided to be this way. You just got wet-brained enough that you can't actually talk about what's going on around you. As far as I know, you don't have Hunter Thompson's problems with those things. Some people have said that. Doesn't seem that way to me. I've never seen that. But to explain, to answer, to respond why you can't ignore this, well, let's take a look at, I didn't load this in. You want to just read a super chat while I get it?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Give me a second here. All right, just copying some stuff over. All right, what do we got over here? Eric Rousseau says, that's what I love about these high school girls, man. I get older, they stay the same age. Dazed and confused. Thank you. Appreciate that. Professor Brown, note, Russ, Israel is finished. Promise? Thank you. T-Bone says, longtime supporter back when DD had less than 1,000 subscribers. Please consider having Miko Peled and Ryan from Last American Vagabond, and don't start talking about Epstein and the flotillas. Misty Winston rocks. Thank you, T-Bone. Appreciate that very much. Just let me know when you're ready. As absurd as it sounds, it seems like the system is now asking us to choose a side between white and black, hot satanic pedophiles. All I could say is, how about neither? All right. Let's see.
All right. Got it.
All right.
Okay, so the reason that you cannot be taught, you would argue that your beat is domestic politics, or one of your beats, right? You would argue that's one of your beats. Okay, well, here's Thomas Massey in an interview with Tucker Carlson explaining in part why you can't be covering that without getting into this issue.
But me has an AIPAC person.
What's that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
That's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them. And they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them.
That's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
So unless you want to limit yourself to small town meetings where they're voting on a new stop sign, yeah, you really can't be a relevant observer of the domestic scene and refuse to talk about Israel. You just can't. Nobody is saying that you've got to be Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or Norman Finkelstein. We're not. But the first thing I did after October 7th was read a history of the Middle East. I started from there and I continued, and I learned enough that I feel comfortable talking about the subject. Not in the way that Max might. I don't have that level of expertise. I don't claim to. But this is the nature of journalism, right? It's the first draft of history. You're always cramming for the test. That's the gig, as I'm sure Matt knows better than I do. You want to see why you have to cover Israel? Look at what this has done to your work. Look what this has done to your site. Look at this. We've got ICE raids. You've got Supreme Court rulings about habeas corpus exploding this week. What the fuck are you covering? Gender from fucking 3-4 years ago? We covered that. We don't cover it much now because it's kind of done. Like, I'm not saying don't touch on it every now and then. Really? Like with all of, or if it were even in the mix with these other subjects. Really? Transhumanism, the ersatz religion. Yeah, no, that's really relevant right now. Interestingly, he mentions Unheard, which belongs to Sir Marshall. They're one of the investors in the Free Press, whose son is Winston Marshall, another one of the kind of intellectual dark web figures pushing exactly the same talking points. Here's Matt doing an interview with what's his name? Frankie Sayers from Unheard. Is Europe or Donald Trump's America a bigger threat to free speech? Now, look, I was not going to go and subject myself to that interview. I am betting you guys don't talk about the suppression of pro-Palestine voices or the journalists who have been arrested in England. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, let me know. I'd be surprised if I am. This, I actually had the time to look at the article. I know you didn't get into any of that. Everyone this week, it's very funny. It's very funny. People on the anti-woke grift train, they all this week were very excited to have something to report. The UK earned status as a censorship state. The arrest of Graham Linehan for his tweets is one of many examples. Okay. All right. So you want to cover that? Fine. This happened a few days later. Are you going to cover this? I would say this is more significant than they rousted a comedian. He's not even charged. They rousted a comedian at the airport. It's fucked up. I'd say this is more fucked up, wouldn't you? Breaking. 857 total arrested for sign holding yesterday. You want to talk about censorship? I was able to say the name of that comedian in this segment, right? I can't say the name of the organization that they were protesting in part on behalf of because we could lose our channel for it. Now that seems like censorship. That seems like something you might want to cover. You would argue that your beat is censorship, right? You covered the subject. You covered the subject of censorship in the UK. So it's within your beat, right? Do you really think a comedian getting rousted at the airport is more important than this? I eagerly await Matt's coverage of this subject. Among the 857 arrestees were vicars and priests, war veterans and descendants of Holocaust survivors, retired teachers, and healthcare workers. Mike Higgins, a blind and disabled activist, was arrested for the second time under the Lift the Ban campaign after 10 hours of protest in Parliament Square, joining 800 others detained for opposing UK complicity in Israel's genocide. As police took him away, the crowd cheered while he defiantly raised his sign.
And
we
notice,
we have no other choice than to protest, Mike said. Go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Notice these tweets are not even mentioning the group name because the group name, because of their proscription or whatever the fuck they call it in the UK, they're banned on X. They're basically banned on YouTube. They have a channel, but their videos are not disseminated. Right. Essentially a private channel. So yeah, you can't even talk about this shit. You can't even talk about this. Censorship is a major beat of yours. You don't have to be an expert on the conflict to be against censorship, do you?
Right. So maybe you should get on that instead of obsessing on comedians who got rousted at the airport. I mean, yeah, that's messed up. That shouldn't happen. Don't you think this is the bigger story? If you're going to cover UK censorship, why would you not cover this? And that is why it's not people are conspiracy theorists. People don't understand why you suck this much now. That is what it is. And to attribute it to conspiracy, that's the kindest explanation. That's the kindest explanation for why you want to talk about the comedian, but you don't want to talk about over 800 protesters being arrested. Or how about this? Journalist Sarah Wilkinson has apparently been rearrested by British counterterrorism police. Starmer's war on democracy continues apace. Have you written about this? I must have missed it. I'm a subscriber. I must have missed it if you did. I used to look forward to Matt's articles dropping in my inbox. Now I dread it. I dread it because I'm like, oh man, what completely off base Russiagate article am I going to get now on the day that like a major Epstein story broke? Police send file on British independent journalist Richard Medhurst to Crown Prosecution Service. How about that? How about that? You're a journalist, right? You're very dedicated to civil liberties, freedom of speech. Have you written a single article about this? Single article. You don't even have to agree with his views on Palestine to agree with his right to express them, right? How about this? You're talking about Europe censorship. Switzerland has arrested Palestinian American journalist Ali Abu Nima. Did you write about that? I don't remember. I didn't see it. If you did, how about this? Israel's war on Gaza, deadliest conflict for journalists, says report. More journalists killed in Gaza than in both world wars, Vietnam, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan combined, says Costs of War Project. This is a pretty recent article. The number's probably gone up since it's been written, honestly. It's like a couple weeks ago. At least 278 journalists and media workers, mostly Palestinians, have been killed in Israel's war on Gaza since October 7th, 2023. 273 Palestinians. You don't feel that's your beat? That's not your beat? You have to go there? You're pulling the Douglas Murray argument. You haven't been? You haven't been? We haven't been either. We cover it. So moving on. I got a call to do an appearance with a friend of Brianna's, Sabrina Sabby Sab Salvati, with whom I'd always gotten along. It was going fine until we hit this question. The Pentagon just issued a statement saying they don't consider what's happening in Gaza a genocide. I strongly disagree. How do you feel about what's happening there? It was once considered a virtue in journalism to decline to answer a question if you don't know what you're talking about. I explained to her that Gaza wasn't a subject that I had ever covered, and that as a reporter, you get in trouble when you speak outside your area of expertise. I was clearly talking about getting in trouble factually, but we live in a conspiratorial age. Get in trouble with who, she said, Zionists? This was nuts. I work for myself. My income is from individual subscribers sending a few dollars a month. See, Matt's never heard of audience capture. He doesn't know what that is. He doesn't know what kinds of other pressures could be brought to bear on you professionally, socially. The man who had the IRS come to his house doesn't understand what she's talking about. Do Zionists have the power or inclination to stop all those little transactions? I just don't think I'm obligated to talk about things I haven't covered, I said, trying to be polite. Quote, I think I disagree with that, Matt, she said. She disagreed that I prefer to only speak when I know what I'm talking about. Genocide is a serious, serious issue. She was telling me the answer to her question. Next, she said Glenn Greenwald told her nobody is an expert, and Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate get a lot of pushback, and people smear them all the time for speaking about Israel. All your friends have already given the right answer. Why won't you? Then I don't think you have to be afraid of the pushback. Okay. All right. So Matt is arguing here that unless you're an expert in something, you can't cover it. You can't cover it. All right. So what's Matt's background? Matt has a BA from Bard College, according to this. Now, admittedly, I did a lot of it's kind of sketchy what his major is. It doesn't seem like that's all that apparent, but he has a BA, right? He studied Russian literature at Leningrad State University. I think we can safely say that Matt, when he started writing these books, was not an expert on police brutality or Eric Garner, right? And yet he wrote a book on those subjects. He did what journalists are supposed to do. He did research so he could inform his readers about it. That's by definition what you do. Was he an expert on drug dealing when he wrote about the business of drug dealing? Griftopia, was he an expert on Wall Street and high finance when he dug into that subject and what the circumstances were surrounding the 2008 crash? That's a very complicated subject, which he addressed very well and very effectively. So his basic premise that if you're not an expert in a subject, you can't address it, you can't write about it, you can't learn about it. It's absurd on the face of it for not only a journalist, but a journalist at Matt's level of the game, born into a family of journalism, to say something so ridiculous. If you don't already know about it, you can't learn. You've had a lot of time to learn about it. But of course, this is total bullshit because Matt knows very well about it, or at least he did 23 fucking years ago when he wrote this article that call out to Zaid Jilani for finding this. You used to write about Palestine, including criticizing media ignorance of the Palestinians. Wonder what changed. Now, this was 23 years ago. And you know what? For those of you who love Matt's old writing, this is gonna bring you back, man. This is the Matt Taibbi we all love, in which he makes it very clear he knows exactly what's going on in Israel, and he's known for a very long time. So this was addressing, those of you who are old enough might remember, CNN put out a video showing people celebrating 9/11, showing Arabs celebrating 9/11. So this is titled Far Gone in 30 Seconds, because that was the length of the clip. CNN sentences Palestine to death. In general, American coverage of Islam tends to focus on 2 or 3 key themes that are offered as explanation for Arab hostility to America. The first is the poverty of Islamic countries. Muslims are inevitably portrayed as murderously envious of American affluence. The envy is almost always blind and irrational. To quote the New York Times analysis from September 16th, remember this is 2002, Muslim extremists profess a hatred for the values cherished in the West as freedom, tolerance, prosperity, religious pluralism, and universal suffrage. The second is religious fanaticism as expressed in the endless America seen as great Satan pieces. Muslims do not fear death because they believe in an afterlife. Muslims are all inspired to jihad by commandment from above. Muslims are willing to kill anyone, guilty or innocent, to recapture the homelands and rid the world of infidel, i.e., American values. The third theme is anti-Semitism. Muslims are shown throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers for no apparent reason. The rock throwing, I'm not going to say that in case we get in trouble with YouTube, photo was one of the great cliches of 20th century journalism. The reason they were throwing rocks, we were always told, is that they're crazed anti-Semites. And we know who else was an anti-Semite. That's a very Matt flourish. But Palestinians have a simple reason to hate Americans. Americans are supporting the occupation of their country by Israel. Israeli armed forces, the same people who are bulldozing neighborhoods and shooting into crowds, use American weapons, even American missiles. The United States is basically a colonial aggressor to most Palestinians, some 360,000 of which are living as refugees in Lebanon.
It was woke.
But
back
all
then.
of, huh?
It was woke
Very-
back then.
It was very woke. It was very woke. Well, I hear he used to go in the women's bathroom back then. But all of this got left out, making the situation much worse than it ever was. This is how he closes it out. Probably no single film clip in recent history has had as much of an impact as the Palestine clip. Summing it up one way was Ehud Sprinzak, an Israeli expert on terrorism who was quoted in Reuters referring to the clip. Quote, "From the perspective of Jews, it is the most important public relations act ever committed in our favor," unquote. Put it another way, in the 48 hours after the clip ran, Israelis shot and killed 13 Palestinians in the Jenin area of the West Bank. 30 seconds was all that took. Forget about anyone ever being reasonable when this is the way our leading journalists work. So, Matt, when you say you don't know enough to talk about this, you're straight up lying. You are straight up lying. You understand the situation very well. Very well. You describe very accurately why people in that part of the world have such anger about what's been done to them. You accurately describe what America is doing to prop up Israel and what Israel does with the money and weapons we send them. You indict the media for putting forth, rightly so, a very facile, cliched vision of that part of the world that doesn't get into these nuances. You connect the way that Israeli propaganda or Hasbara is used and deployed in places like CNN in ways that get the people there killed. That's the greatest irony of this. You're propping up and glazing Barry Weiss, and don't deny it. Okay, we've read that article. Don't deny that you were giving Barry Weiss a nice foot rub there and talking about her like this brilliant entrepreneur without ever talking about Israel. You're propping up exactly one of the worst of the kinds of propagandists that you called out in that article. That you're talking about somebody who literally is widely believed to have gotten a Palestinian poet killed by putting a target on his back for making a joke, for making some gallows humor. So when Sabby or when I say, well, it looks like Matt is compromised, I don't know that you want to argue otherwise, because that's the nicest explanation there could be. You notice we're not saying like he's bought, he saw. We got a lot of comments of people saying that. I hate to think that. I don't know. I don't know. I stick by what I said. It doesn't make sense. It's not natural. Matt was too good at the job at one time to have just gone this way naturally. I believe there's some kind of pressure. Then again, man, I mean, looking at going so far as to write this defensive, completely missing and going around the point fucking article and doing whatever that was with Walter yesterday. I don't know, man. Maybe he does mean it. Maybe he's on crack. I don't fucking know. I know that as a journalist, Matt, your work has become the opposite of journalism. You are misinforming and misdirecting people, which is your prerogative, and people can pay for that kind of work if they want. It's a free marketplace. But you cannot blame people for wondering, when you got somebody who was one of the most important independent-minded journalists in the space, what the fuck happened to that guy? It's not because people are woke. It's not because people hate you. It's because, you know what they say? The opposite of love is indifference. After this, I think this is the last attention you'll get from that space, which is maybe what you want. After this, I don't think anybody's going to be paying any attention. Nobody was paying attention before. People only paid attention because you weighed in on this thing that was so tied to Israel that it was just absurd that you would cover it without talking about that. So you drew attention, and it surprised people. It surprised people because basically you've been staying in this little hole where you could just replay your greatest hits from 2021. The fact that you stepped into something in the current era, well, this demonstrates, this is the answer to your question. This is why you have to cover Israel, because look what happened when you tried to cover that without talking about it. So if you're not compromised, what can I tell you, man? Poltergeist, come back into the light. Go into the light, Matt. Come back into the light. I would love to see some of the kind of reporting that we just showed from Matt Taibbi in 2002, man. You're a great writer then. I would love to see that. But going around and saying this is because people are woke or they have it in for you, it's quite the opposite, man. It's quite the opposite. It's because a lot of people who really loved your work just don't recognize what you've become.
Yep. I think that is very well said. I mean, I have stuff to add, but I'm going to do a little bit now myself. So I guess we can cut that there. And then we will move on. But not before we have 985 likes in the chat. 2,485 in the YouTube chat. All right, let's take some super chats here. China Shill says, "Don't let Private Pile get you down." DD Uber Alice. Thank you, China Shill. Daria says, "I acknowledge how hard it is to be attacked." K. Thank you, Daria. Trump cheats at golf, says Don Zuger. Appreciate that. Remember, Trump openly bragged on Howard Stern about being backstage at beauty pageants while women are getting dressed. Yep, exactly. Yeah, China Shill, I know, has been defending Michael Tracy. Michael Tracy is correct. Have Tracy on. He is adding credibility to the case. Yeah, I mean, the invitation's open. We said it. We will not.
Yeah, we'll invite him.
Yeah.
We'll invite him. And like I said, man, we invited Taibbi. I mean, he was thinking about it. Maybe not after today.
It'll be like that game of Make Me Laugh. You remember that game show, Make Me Laugh, where the comedians would have to try and make someone laugh, and whoever held out the most won. That'll be like Tracy with us. Shows Trump values real estate over saving children. Detroit pizza is the best kind. Square slices. I do like Detroit pizza. I wouldn't say it's the best kind, but I do like it. It's very, very good.
Yeah, we liked it.
Yeah. Garble says, "I'm still so mad you won $30 from a scratch off." Thank you, Garble. Appreciate that. Jelperman says, "Michael Tracy's auditioning for next season of To Catch a Predator." Thank you. Kurt thinks Nick is an op. He was never arrested on January 6th. Yes, I heard that. Kurt talked about Kino Casino exposing Nick having pedos on his show from years ago. All right, so I guess maybe he won't sit in tomorrow, or maybe he will. That'll be fun. Clemens 83, thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate that. Paul Chu says, "Never go full Taibbi." Kuznetsky Bassane says, "Maybe that congressional committee and the IRS scared Matt more than we realized." Well, there's something else that one of our viewers sent us, which I think might be interesting. It's more of the Kirn angle, but we'll get to that in a minute. Josh Daniel, thanks for the $4.99. Katie Halper frequently criticized and made fun of Barry Weiss when Matt used to be your co-host on Useful Idiots. He's 1,000% playing dumb.
Of course he is.
Of course. Landrew, thanks for the $100, Landrew. Appreciate that. Let's get a cowbell and a sound drop for Landrew, because you are not Matt Taibbi. Free Palestine and honor the people of Yemen. Thank you, Landrew. That's very kind of you. Appreciate that very much. Folks, please smash that subscribe button, smash that like button. Let's work the algo here. We're at 1,048 likes with 2,400 in the chat. So let's...
I am Landrew. Landrew is dead.
There you go. Thank you very much, Landrew. Appreciate that, as always. All right, let's see what we got here. China Shill says, "Virginia Giuffre is an admitted liar. It's not that she thinks she thinks it's too crazy, the basis of the whole case based on liars and diagnosed schizophrenics." Well, look, a lot of this testimony is from very traumatized people. That's one thing I think you have to look into. And there's a lot of evidence beyond that, I feel. Announcer voice, Matt Taibbi and Michael Tracy, brought to you now by Shmooly Lube. Shmooly Lube, coming to another sphincter near you. Honestly, very disappointing to say the least.
Dude, I've never, because like I said, man, we're nasty guys. We don't mind mixing it up. I've never been so sad about doing that kind of piece as I am about doing those. It's very sad.
China Shill, it's very clear you haven't read any of his Substack articles because you just completely mischaracterized what he's been writing, like 99% of the horde. Are you Michael Tracy, China Shill? Are you Michael? Are you Michael? I mean, he paywalled a bunch of his articles. I don't have a paid subscription to his. We do have a paid subscription to Racket. Who knows? Maybe we'll cancel Racket and read up on his stuff. But I've seen a lot of his interviews. Like, I've seen most of his debates with people. So I think I get a pretty good representation, unless there's something in the article that I should read that he hasn't spoken about. But like I said, I mean, he's welcome to come on. We'll talk. No problem with that. Speaking of piano lessons, deeply saddened to learn of the loss of Supertramp's Rick Davies. Cancer sucks. You guys rock.
Thank
you. Appreciate that. All right. Let's move right on along here. Okay.
You know what I could go for?
What's
Some of
that?
that St. Louis pizza.
Yes, yeah, some Provel. Exactly, yeah. All right, we're gonna move right on along here. Okay, so Rush just covered Taibbi's article in response to some of this criticism. So I brought up some highlights here of my own about more talking about the substance of the Israel-Palestine conflict itself. And what did we say from the very beginning of this, from October 2023? The effort to smear the pro-Palestine movement was going to be that they are the closed-minded, sort of humorless woke scolds that the rest of the campus liberals and leftists have come to be known as. And Russ wrote an article really very incisively describing that contradiction and the cognitive dissonance that created on academic campuses and in the academic spaces, which we know Matt liked enough to tweet out. He shared that as a Substack note, and it brought it tons and tons of readers. So we know that he was at least sympathetic to that framing a couple years ago. His co-host here, not so much. So here is Walter Kern saying, it's really hard to even know what genocide is anymore because the trans activists claim that they were being genocided. Yeah, that's right. That's an actual serious point that this guy tried to make. Let's take a look.
Banners, pins, symbolic statements of support or criticism, and we have now reached a kind of maximum intensity for those. The word genocide was used of the trans problems for trans people until recently.
Oh, so that means I don't know what the word genocide means anymore. Because one group of people misused the term, that means that term loses all meaning from that day forth. And now I don't know what genocide is anymore. Who can say what a genocide is anymore because of some trans activists said that there was a genocide against trans people? Read Article 2. Read the convention. Read the Genocide Convention. Israel is in blatant violation of 4 out of 5 items. The only one they have not committed yet is the relocation of children from one group to another. And that is despite their best efforts to. They are trying to find countries to take in, quote unquote, refugees that they have created through their campaign of indiscriminate mass murder. But big brain that you are, you can't really decipher that anymore because trans people said a few years ago that they were being genocided.
Yeah, and I will just mention as somebody who really got into that debate, that was very fringe. It is very rare that I was debating a trans activist. In fact, I can't remember one time that was where they went.
To genocide.
I mean, I know that yeah, there's a trans genocide. Like, yeah, it was out there, man. I mean, this is like when they talk about how everyone's infuriated by the language that Walter will understand. You know how they'll play it up that there are a bunch of angry men when a movie comes out with an Asian character or a black character in a franchise, and that's like 7 people. And they're just trying to get clicks. That's pretty much what that was with the trans activists. Like, sure, you can always find somebody saying the craziest fucking thing you can imagine.
Yeah.
I was very involved in debating these people, and I never once had someone pull that on me.
Yeah, it was a fringe talking point within the activist movement itself. But here he goes.
The vaccine deniers and resistors.
Vaccine. Okay, so we got trans people, we got vaccine, just playing all the anti-woke greatest hits. We gonna mention George Floyd next? One is that next? Let's see. Did you stop there?
A death cult. If you remember, Trump's supporters themselves are members of a death cult. It is a time of ultimate rhetoric.
Well, I mean, don't you feel those people have been vindicated now, Walter?
Yeah. Ruthless and mob-like attacks on those who fail to, comport themselves correctly. That's the world we live in now. And to me, it's all gotten a bit deafening and a bit numbing.
Numbing. Okay, so you're numb to talk of genocide. You're numb to talk of mass murder because the term was misused by trans activists a few years ago. And that's why you're just exhausted by this conversation and reluctant to engage. That's it. Or could it be something else? A viewer of our show, a patron of our show, emailed us this interesting collection of information about Walter Kirn. I won't say who he is. He calls in every now and then, not a regular caller, not Gilgamesh. I don't know if you want to have your name revealed. If you do, call in and let everybody know that it was you who sent this to us.
They call in usually under Barry W.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a magazine here called Tablet Magazine, online magazine, I guess. I had never heard of it. But Walter Kirn is a big fan of this magazine. In the About Us section, it says Tablet is considered, in the words of Up in the Air author Walter Kirn, the single best magazine in America. And the top of that paragraph says it was launched in 2009 as an online outlet about Jewish life and identity. So Walter Kirn says this is the single best magazine in America. His publicity quote listed in the About Us section. So let's take a look at some recent articles from Walter Kirn's favorite magazine. Here's this one. Feeding the enemy. By abandoning its original plan and bending to international pressure, Israel handed Hamas control of aid, of the narrative, and of the war. Remember when we said how when Netanyahu would announce that he's letting a tiny trickle of aid in, how he did so in an apologetic tone because a lot of Israelis didn't want any aid to get in? Well, that opinion here of the guys eating bananas and criticizing the Israeli government for not starving children to death enough. That is a recent article in Walter Kirn's favorite magazine. Here's another one. The settler violence myth. You get the idea what that's about. Pretty self-explanatory. How about this one? How about this one? China Shill, you're going to love this one. I'm going to win you back with this. Who is committing genocide? China, Russia, and Iran. Wow. China, Russia, and Iran committing genocide, according to Walter Kirn's favorite magazine, but not Israel. Israel didn't starve enough Palestinians, according to one of the contributors.
They went too easy on them.
At Walter Kirn's favorite magazine. Okay, so why is this relevant? Well, the literary editor for this magazine is a guy named David Samuels. Keep that name in your head for about another 60 seconds. Here's another print magazine, a 20-page pamphlet from what I understand, kind of an old school throwback to the old pamphlet newspapers called County Highway with a modest little website. And, you know, they write fairly innocuous articles like An Unnatural History of the Armadillo. That's a great topic for Racket News. No Israelis involved in that. You can write about the history of the armadillo. That's pretty safe. But if we look at this About Us page, the editor of that is the same David Samuels that runs the fanatical Zionist magazine Tablet. And who's the editor at large? Walter Kirn. So there is a business relationship between Walter Kirn and a militant Zionist by all indications. So that could explain why you are numb to talk of genocide, right? Not blackmail, no threats. It is the Occam's razor point of view, which is one that I tend to embrace in most cases, which is that you're just a giant fucking pussy. You're a giant pussy. And if you're too big a pussy to acknowledge a genocide, then you are free to be as big a pussy as you want and not have anything to say about tens of thousands of children being murdered, about the fact that the largest cohort of death in Palestine has been of children 14 years and younger, about the fact that Hind Rajab had her car shot at over 300 times by these Nazi fucks who David Samuels loves so much, your business partner there. So if you're too big of a fucking pussy to reckon with that, then don't reckon with that. That means you have to keep your ugly fucking mouth shut about Barry Weiss. That is the price you have to pay for that. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. Nothing too complicated. No one will bother you. Go do your thing. But when you dip your toe into this water, not knowing the first thing about what you're talking about because you're too much of a coward to learn about it, because the consequence of learning about it and delivering that knowledge is that maybe you'll piss off your coworker at this other stupid magazine, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. I don't care what it is. But the fact of the matter is that to say that you cannot recognize genocide because some trans activists misused the term a few years ago is complete and utter chicken shit. And you are a worthless piece of low-life coward garbage for saying it. So, anything to add to that? We have more.
I was Matt, I was in the bathroom the other day, and there was a woman and they were very broad shoulders. So. Sticking to the important issues there.
Yeah. I mean, it is just pathetic. It's pathetic. And that is the anti-woke grift in action. Well, I have to plead ignorance to that. Yeah. Just what a creep. All right, but we have more video. So now, that was for Walter. We have a relationship with Matt. I do have some respect for Matt and Matt's work. What Walter Kern brings to that, I do not know, except for just pseudo-intellectual brain droppings from a guy who looks like a bloated drunk. Like if someone left a tequila bottle at Chernobyl and the worm at the bottom of the bottle grew into a person, that's what Walter Kern looks like. That's what he brings to your show. And he issues banal bullshit talking points like that.
No, it plays like he has an agreement with his son that they're going to do a video call once a week, and he's trying desperately to hold his attention so that his son calls again next week.
Yeah. Right, exactly. But Matt actually does, I think, look, we have been fans of Matt. We've gotten along well with Matt, and here is Matt sort of going on a bit more about why he is uncomfortable talking about this topic.
With the subject, there are things about it that just make me nervous. Suddenly, there's an assumption suddenly in the pro-Palestinian movement that that terrorism is that the October 7th attacks were justified, that they were resistance. And what bothers me about that isn't that I want people to be talking about that all the time. It's just that I was under the impression until recently that terrorism or terrorist violence was something abhorrent and that we didn't agree with that. To sort of casually decide that it's appropriate in this case, we accept it. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with that. I mean, I don't feel comfortable with bombing civilians either. But this is why I don't talk about these things, because I don't. They're subjects that have a lot of contradictions to them, and I have trouble feeling strongly about any situation where the two sides involved are both doing things that make me uncomfortable.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say in blanket fashion that I thought refusing to engage with ideas that make one uncomfortable, I thought that was a woke thing.
That's woke.
That's what the little 18-year-old pussies on college campuses, I thought that's how they talk. They need a safe space for things they're not comfortable grappling with, things that make them feel a little bit nervous or a little uneasy. That is the job of talking about current events. You don't think it makes us kind of uncomfortable to talk about certain things? There's a lot about this issue that causes a lot of discomfort. It's also a false categorization of the pro-Palestine side. You have people who are calling this a genocide, who in the next breath will even say they like Israel. Tucker Carlson will, do a big segment about, the death campaign in Gaza and then say, and I have nothing against Israel, right? So that is the range of ideologies you're dealing with on the pro-Palestine side. As far as October 7th, there's diversity of opinion on that itself. Chris Hedges did an interview with this guy on YouTube where he talked about having met Hamas leadership. I forget if they were political or military leadership. And he said he didn't like them. They came off very thuggish. He challenged them on their tactics of attacking civilians and hated their answer. So there you have one opinion about that. He still speaks out about the genocide because however you feel about Hamas, the tens of thousands of children who, once again, make up by far the largest death cohort in this quote unquote war, have nothing to do with any of that. Another school of thought is Norm Finkelstein's school of thought, who compared October 7th to the Nat Turner rebellion, in which, yes, grotesque atrocities were committed against children. Nat Turner killed white children when he rebelled, and nobody of conscience could ever condone that. But the reason why Norm compares that to October 7th is he makes the formulation that I made, which is that when you treat people like animals, some people are going to then act like animals. Does not mean we condone attacks on children or civilians. We do not. It is an explanation for that violence. When you create an environment of savage violence, that is an invitation for savage violence to occur. That's just an analysis of the situation. That is not a glorification of attacks on civilians. I certainly would never do that. I'm a parent myself. Attacks on children, of course, it's terrible. That is the way Norm Finkelstein feels. And then there are people within the movement, yes, who feel about this in ways that I cannot repeat on this channel because we'll get thrown off the air. Why? Because there is tremendous censorship about this issue, which is, again, another major beat of yours. So even if you are made uncomfortable by certain people's attitudes towards Hamas and October 7th and terrorism and resistance and all of these questions, the fact that we have to hold our breath when we open our mouths to speak about it should be an animating issue for you if you care about freedom of speech. And in the article that Russell read in your last segment, you understand very much the dynamics behind this violence. You do not have to condone violence to understand the dynamics behind it. And so there is a range of opinion within the pro-Palestine space on the issues that you just raised. Some of them make people a little uncomfortable. You know what makes us, as two Jewish guys who talk about this, a little uncomfortable is the fact that after a year of talking about this, when we went to do a segment on Darryl Cooper, who is essentially a Holocaust denier, more or less, he walks right up to the edge of that, we got ratioed in the comments by people who were drawn to the Israel-Palestine issue only because of their anti-Semitism, who then said that we, as two Jews, were genetically incapable of discussing Darryl Cooper. You think that didn't make us a little uncomfortable? Of course it does. You think it's going to stop us from speaking out against a fucking genocide? Of course not. I'm happy to be a little uncomfortable at times. Isn't that what being an adult is? Isn't that what distinguishes us from the woke lib college kids? Like, be a little uncomfortable. It's not the end of the world to feel a little uncomfortable. It's good to feel a little uncomfortable. That means you're doing something that matters.
Yeah, it's a really remarkable argument to make in defense of your journalism, because you're actually making an argument for your own irrelevance. Like, listening to this entire segment, I felt like both of them were arguing against listening to them. Like, you're basically arguing that you can't comment on most of the relevant topics of the moment. So why would anyone waste their time with your show, with your writing? Like, why? You're saying your job as a journalist is to absorb these facts and present them to the people who are consuming you through your writing or through your show in a way that's digestible, that's engaging, right? Which Matt was always very good at. That's part of why he rose as high as he did. His prose was always really entertaining. That's your job. Like, you're basically saying, I can't do my job because I'm uncomfortable, in which case you're arguing for your own irrelevance.
Right. Aren't we supposed to tolerate discomfort? Isn't that what avoiding a safe space is? Or do we need safe spaces now? We can't tackle things that make us uncomfortable. All right. Last but not least, here's when they do a deep dive, their version of a deep dive on the Israel-Palestine issue, about the question of theocracy.
Do countries have the right to be theocracies? This is a thing that Zoran Mandami on good I think it was Good Morning New York said. They asked him if he favored Israel's right to exist, and he says, I favor Israel's right to exist with equal rights. And then he said something like, where there's no hierarchy of citizenship based on religion. I favor their right to exist if there's no hierarchy of citizenship based on religion. Now, I wouldn't want to live in a theocracy, but if we're going to suddenly start saying that theocracies can't exist, then
Israel's not a theocracy.
Well, it's a country that gives preferential treatment to certain kinds of to Jewish people.
Yes, defined as an ethnicity.
Right. That makes it worse than a theocracy, not better. There's a word you're looking for. It starts with the letter A. Matt eventually finds it, so he doesn't avoid it entirely. To be fair, but yes, no. What you're talking about is worse than a theocracy. It's what do they call that again? Let's see.
Defined as an ethnicity. Well,
Israel, as I understand it, is one of the most, secular states in terms of governance.
It is,
except for its preference for those who ethnically belong in its homeland. Now we can debate that, but it does a theocracy. To me, a theocracy is something like Iran,
right?
Various states that establish Islam as the legal basis for their policing, their legislation, and so on. Does Israel make everybody stay at home on the Sabbath? I'm not aware that it does.
No, it's not that extreme, but it does confer different benefits to people who are Jewish than it does to other people, right. Which is a reason that there is. I mean, it's the central problem of this whole thing is that Israel can't permit a numerically superior amount of Palestinians to vote in their elections and sort of rework the nature of the state. But should they have the right to prevent that, right? Like some people compare this to South Africa, the apartheid.
Apartheid. That's the word.
Boom.
That's the word. Nailed it.
Winner, chicken dinner.
Apartheid. That's the word we were looking for. Thanks for thinking of that. Yes, indeed. So what Kern describes there is the actual fundamental contradiction of Israel, which is why it is an illegitimate project from a human rights perspective to begin with. Yes, Zionism was constructed as a way to introduce Judaism as a race, but not a religion. But the contradiction of that is that the location of the state makes that kind of an impossible circle to square, since the people living in it are largely from Eastern Europe, right? Yeah. So you can't really say it's a race and say that their homeland is the Middle East without people thinking, well, this seems like a more constructed dynamic, such as apartheid, because that is, yes, what it is. And should they have the right to? Well, now let's now that we're caught up and on the same page, only took 5.5 minutes. Let's hear more.
Right. But I don't know. I think it's a very difficult question. Like, are we now saying that we're not going to let Saudi Arabia, Mauritania, Afghanistan, Vatican City, and a host of other countries?
Vatican City.
Well, I mean, look,
no, it's a state.
A long...
it is a state of type of sorts legally, right?
There are also there's a number of states that are where the official religion is constitutionally Buddhism, right? And that's a fact of life. And I believe Cambodia, Thailand, or some others I'm probably not thinking of. But
do we unconditionally support Cambodia? Is there a Cambodian lobby that controls almost every elected politician in our federal space? Because that is a big issue. It's not a question of should we police the world and right every wrong around the world, but as Americans, it is our job to right the wrongs that we as Americans are responsible for, yes. One of which is the existence of the state of Israel as it is currently constituted. Should we provide unconditional material support to an apartheid state that is indiscriminately slaughtering children by the thousands? I think that's a fair question. That's not us being the world's policeman, but we got to finish this because Worm Man here puts the cherry on top.
If we're going to say we're not going to allow states to give preferential treatment to members of a certain religion, then that's a big change in our outlook toward the entire world all of a sudden. Isn't it?
May I pause and say, if we're going to say that the world should be this way or that way, or people dwelling on other continents or islands should be this or that way, I guess we have a right to. But That feels a lot like American solipsism to me. And it feels a lot like the kind of thing that gets us into wars. It ends up with us siding with one group or another on behalf of democracy, or going back to Mark Twain's days, you know, enlightened Christianity, and killing a lot of people.
I mean, what do you even say to that? What do you even say that I hurt my side? Oh, I gotta get my kidneys checked after that.
God.
Oh.
Like the level, the layers of stupid and ignorance there are hard to untangle. What the fuck are you talking about? This is what I said when I called you, man. There's a scene in Woody Allen's Sleep where he wakes up in the future and they show him like this terrible show from the 70s, and they say, we have a theory that they used to show this to prisoners as a form of punishment. Woody Allen goes, yes, that's exactly what that was. That's how I felt.
If we don't support Israel, we'll get dragged into wars.
Fuck, how could you say something that fucking ignorant? That ignorant. Oh my God. Yeah, the reason we're not up in arms about Micronesia is we're not funding a genocide in Micronesia. We're not funding an ethno-state, an apartheid state in Micronesia, right? Like, sure, there are countries all over the world where there are injustices, but we're not, they don't have handlers in Washington. And frankly, I mean, the Sudan thing, we've tried to cover that. A lot of people will bring that up. I promise you, yeah, there's some racial blindness to suffering of black people, but the Palestinians are brown people. Do you think if everyone had a Sudan handler in Washington, people wouldn't talk about that shit? They'd be talking about it. People talk about it because it's relevant. That is why you can't avoid it. And to go on and start comparing these countries that are, you know, basically, yes, they're theocracies, but they don't have a civil war within their borders. They're not at war with each other, and certainly not at war with one another with our funding, with our help. That is really the secret sauce here that makes it relevant.
Right. Exactly. Like, if we did not support Israel in the way that we do, it would not exist as an apartheid state because it could not. Right? It would be overtaken by force unless they granted equal rights to all people on that land from the river to the sea, right? So it would force them to be good neighbors. It would force them to change their ways if we did not support them, right? So the question of, well, should this apartheid state exist? It's not the right question to be at. The only reason it exists is because of our backing. So should we go around the world and overthrow every government that does not conform to our vision of whatever democracy we have running here that we're so proud of? I'm not sure what that is at this point. No, but we can control what we control, obviously. And this is something that is within our control. And again, I find it impossible to believe that Matt Taibbi doesn't understand that. Just impossible.
Well, we read the article. He understood it 23 years ago.
Right.
He broke it down in a few paragraphs very clearly, very well. He certainly does understand it. And that's why people think that Matt is compromised, because it's hard to explain it any other way. It's hard to explain that Matt lost 50 IQ points on the way to the toilet one night, right? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And to start talking about the Vatican as an example, to the war part is just, it makes your head explode. Yeah, nah, you know, this might get us into wars. That's exactly what people are protesting about.
You wouldn't want to take sides in the Middle East because that could lead to war.
Yeah, we don't want to get into the middle of that or anything. At another point, he tries to marginalize the pro-Palestine movement by saying, where were the protests this summer? Where the fuck were you?
Right.
This is what's so offensive about it. It's worse than bad journalism. It's anti-journalism. You are so horrifically misleading your viewers. Like, people watching Daily Wire, The Blaze would come away much more informed, because at least they're going to say, yeah, look at those protesters. At least they're talking about the protesters. It's better than saying there weren't any protests. It's just amazing. It's like, what is this show? Like two people bitch about the kids?
Right.
Like what is it?
Right. Those woke kids, those crazy kids who understand that, indiscriminately bombing a densely populated area of 2 million people is genocide.
That's woke.
Those crazies. Yeah, those
woke.
wokies. That's right. They said the same thing about trans people, right? Like and subscribe. All right. We'll move right on along here because we actually have some Israel-Palestine news to cover today, believe it or not. Albert Kidd, any discussion involving M. Tracy has to be made on the foundation of his IDF service. He served in the IDF?
What?
Really? I didn't know that.
No.
He's
Did
clearly a Zionist. Their sincere ideology that it's okay.
Is that true?
SA non-Jews is admitted by their own leaders. Is that true? I'd have to ask him about that. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I did not know that. I did not know that. EO Shush says, Keaton, you're always patting yourself on the back because you were ahead of the curve on 9/11 being an inside job. Well, it helps when you get a call on 9/11 not to go into the World Trade Center. Yeah, exactly. I was one of those alerted that day. No, it's a funny story about that, actually. Not about that, but you bring up a funny memory of mine. The day of 9/11, I was in junior high. I was in 9th grade. And my Jewish grandparents had been living with us at the time. And so my parents picked me up from school a little early because they're a little nervous that shit might go down. We may have to, lam it. And I get home, of course, Twin Towers falling down or all over the TV. My grandfather, my Jewish grandfather, sitting there in his chair, stone cold silent, because my parents were actually at the World Trade Center, I believe the Thursday before, because they were going to work a jewelry show that holiday season at the World Trade Center. They were having a craft fair. My parents made glass jewelry and stuff. And so my parents had been there the week before. And so it was kind of eerie for them. So I get home. We're watching this all go down. My grandfather's sitting on the recliner, just stone cold silent, doesn't say a word for like an hour. Finally, after an hour, he says, so I guess they're going to have to cancel the show, huh? Meaning the craft fair. I said, yeah, I think they are going to have to cancel the craft fair. Yes, I think I think so. Maybe we should give them a call right now. I doubt they're busy with dealing with anything else. So that was his first response to 9/11 that I heard, my Jewish grandfather. I guess they're going to cancel the show, huh?
They're going to have to cancel it.
Yeah.
Who's going to come? Well, I could tell you they were running the tours to Alcatraz on September 12th, 2001, because I was in San Francisco, and that's what I did the next day.
Right.
It was like the only day you could just walk right up and buy a ticket without a 2-hour wait. That was always like a very hot ticket.
Right.
Alcatraz.
Yeah. He took advantage. Short lines. Short lines.
Hey, nothing else is open.
Nothing else is open. That's right. All right. Ham Hawk says, glad I passed on that job in Qatar today. Kit's Corner says, I'm with Russ. My heroes were way before my time. Carlin Hicks, MLK. It's like the song Only the Good Die Young. Thank you, Kit's Corner. Professor Brown Note says, solve the mystery of D. Cooper's Uber Spasmo hands. See Jim Jarmusch, how to hold a cigarette like a movie Nazi, preferably gloved. Vietnamese make you talk, etc. Thank you. Judy Denmark, thanks for the $50, Judy. Appreciate that very much. Says, hi, boys. Love you a lot and thought you deserved the money I am saving by canceling my subscription to Matt Taibbi. Keep making me proud or I will come after you. See, this is how non-grifty we are, because you guys have been asking us to do a critique of Taibbi for like months, and we held off. Look at all this money we missed out of.
For like a year.
Out on back then. Look at yeah. Look at all this. Look at all this. Could have a down payment on a house already with all of his Substack money.
Make it rain, baby. Make it rain.
Exactly. All right, let's move right on along to our next story.
All right. So here's a cheerful one. Here's an upbeat one. Things are finally changing, it seems, in the arts industry, something that both having an arts background, me and Keaton have been particularly vocal about from the beginning of the horrors of the post-October 7th world. Just to catch you up, they had what is believed to be the biggest protest ever at a film festival in Venice, followed by its longest standing ovation ever for the Hind Rajab film. Didn't think you'd see that a year ago. And now, in a historic declaration, 1,200 plus film workers, I think it's up to 3,000 now, launch pledge to not work with Israeli film institutions implicated in genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people. Susan Sarandon, one of the people who shared that out in conjunction with the group Filmmakers for Palestine, Film Workers for Palestine, rather. Javier Bardem, who I was very impressed with his F1 press tour, because every time they asked him about the film, he started talking about Palestine everywhere he went. Really, that's what you call using your platform.
Apparently, one of the Downton Abbey guys is doing it too. Amanda told me about that because she watched that show. I never did.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Already more than 1,200 filmmakers, actors, and film industry workers have signed, including Adam McKay, Asif Kapadia. This is when you're getting old. You don't know everybody who's famous.
Right. Yeah.
I know about half of these people. Ava DuVernay, I know her. Ao Adabiri, Boots Riley, I like his stuff.
Ao is from The Bear, right? Yeah, I think so.
Deborah Winger, I was so hot for her in her Officer and a Gentleman days. It's totally my type. Emma Seligman, Gail Garcia Bernal, Hannah Einbinder, Ilana Glazer, Javier Bardem, Josh O'Connor, Joshua Oppenheimer, Lucas Don't, Mark Ruffalo, Melissa Barrera, Morgan Spector, Olivia Colman, Riz Ahmed, Susan Sarandon, Tilda Swindon, and Yorgos Lanthimos. The Filmworkers Pledge signals a watershed moment in the film industry for Palestinian rights. We reject silence in the face of genocide and apartheid, and we reject racism, bigotry, bullying, and dehumanization. So this is the statement that they put out, and you can go to their website. If you happen to be a film worker yourself, you can sign the petition. As filmmakers, actors, film industry workers, and institutions, we recognize the power of cinema to shape perceptions. In this urgent moment of crisis where many of our governments are enabling the carnage in Gaza, we must do everything we can to address complicity in that unrelenting horror. The world's highest court, the International Court of Justice, has ruled that there is a plausible risk of genocide in Gaza and that Israel's occupation and apartheid against Palestinians are unlawful. Standing for equality, justice, and freedom for all people is a profound moral duty that none of us can ignore. So too, we must speak out now against the harm done to the Palestinian people. We answer the call of Palestinian filmmakers who have urged the international film industry to refuse silence, racism, and dehumanization, as well as to do everything humanly possible to end complicity in their oppression. Inspired by filmmakers united against apartheid who refused to screen their films in apartheid South Africa. That, by the way, editorial note, was founded in 1987 by Martin Scorsese and Jonathan Demme. We pledge not to screen films, appear at, or otherwise work with Israeli film institutions, including festivals, cinemas, broadcasters, and production companies that are implicated in genocide and apartheid against the Palestinian people. Examples of complicity include whitewashing or justifying genocide and apartheid, and or partnering with the government committing them. That is one based statement they put out. So this is from the New York Times. Film Workers for Palestine said its pledge did not prohibit working with Israeli individuals. Quote, the call is for film workers to refuse to work with Israeli institutions that are complicit in Israel's human rights abuses against the Palestinian people, it said on its website. This refusal takes aim at institutional complicity, not identity. The organization said that while a few Israeli film entities are not complicit, a vast majority of the country's film production and distribution companies, sales agents, cinemas, and other film institutions have never endorsed the full internationally recognized rights of the Palestinian people. So this is the most updated article that I found anywhere. This is Deadline. It keeps updating their information here. Israeli boycott pledge adds hundreds of signatories, including Emma Stone and Peter Sarsgaard. Israeli Producers Association responds. Lily Gladstone and Elliot Page also have signed on now. Like I said, when I looked this morning, it was up to 3,000. In a statement in response to the pledge, the Israeli Film and TV Producers Association said, quote, "The signatories of this petition are targeting the wrong people." Of course they are. "For decades, we Israeli artists, storytellers, and creators have been the primary voices obscuring the reality of the situation by claiming it's complicated and showing gauzy pictures of Palestinian and Israeli children holding hands." I bet you can guess what I added. The primary voices allowing audiences to hear and witness the complexity of the conflict. See, I wasn't far off. Including Palestinian narratives and criticism of Israeli state policies. Ooh, that bad Netanyahu. "We work with Palestinian creators telling our shared stories and promoting peace and an end to violence through thousands of films, TV series, and documentaries." Which ones? Which ones? Can you name them? This call for a boycott is profoundly misguided. The statement continues to describe the boycott as short-sighted, serving to eliminate precisely the collaborative efforts working toward ending violence and achieving peace. Well, they gave you a big out, right? They say, acknowledge the rights of the Palestinian people and you're not boycotted.
Right. That's all you
right?
got to do.
So if you're if this is so unjust, just opt out of the apartheid state. "We will not allow this and will push back in our efforts to end violence and bring just peace to our region for the benefit of all," the statement adds. These guys are funny. I guess they do comedies over there.
Yeah.
We call on the international community to recognize our commitment to dialogue, peace, and giving voice to all sides of this conflict. Our stories are tools for understanding and healing, and we will continue using them to help bring an end to the violence. So that's their response. But that is great news. That means they're not going to be getting film festivals or the participation from these artists at their film festivals. You're not going to be getting cooperation with their production houses. And it looks like it's very quickly. This is where it's very hopeful, and we need that. The dam broke at Venice. It really did. Like you're seeing how quickly this is gaining momentum. When I started working on this story, it was a story about 1,200 people signing it. By the time I put together the slideshow, it was 3,000 signatures. It's very quickly becoming what we've always said it should be. Better late than never. It should be more stigmatizing not to have this position than to have it.
Of course. Normal people will not stand for this. Normal people will not rubber stamp this. And I do think you saw the dam break at Venice. I mean, really, an indicator of that was the No Other Land win at the Oscars, because it was a secret ballot, so no one could get in trouble for voting for it. So in the privacy of the voting booth, when they fill out their cards, they voted for it. That was an indication that, okay, there is that sentiment out there. It's just because a lot of these people are very shallow, self-serving, cowardly people. They weren't coming forward in great numbers at the time. But, you had Brad Pitt put his name on that Hin Rajab film, which is a big indicator because he is pretty staunchly apolitical, generally speaking.
Yep.
Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, Yorgos Lanthimos, who did The Lobster and Small Things. He's worked with Emma Stone, I think 3 films in a row now, and she's on the list, a huge star. Obviously. Like, this should be what essentially, like, and, don't conflate the two causes, but this should be what, like, the BLM and the Time's Up thing. Remember the Time's Up, the Me Too thing where they all had the pins on at the Oscars? Like, that should be the conformity in Hollywood, that you are disgusted by Israel's actions and that you have no problem expressing that outwardly. And that will be the norm. That's going to be the norm everywhere.
We've always
amazing.
said that.
That's what's amazing. Like, that's going to be the norm everywhere. And now you're dealing with the last people who don't want to learn that or acknowledge that or reckon with that in any way.
Yep. That's why they're hiring Barry at CBS News.
That's why they're hiring Barry. That's why they're bringing in Barry Weiss. Get me Barry Weiss on the phone. Andy Gardner says, yes, never meet your heroes. So I watch you guys from a distance. Thank you, Andy Gardner. Appreciate that.
We smell terrible.
Yeah. Christina Suazzo, Russ, can you please put the book you read on the Middle East in the show notes? Thank you so much. All right, cool. Yeah,
yep.
I'll have him do that. We can tag that.
Just remind me.
After the show. Certainly. All right, Marilyn Kelly thought that we missed her super chat because she posted here, but we didn't miss it. We just hadn't gotten to it yet. So I'm going to read it right now because now it's in the queue. Got a lot of super chats today. Thanks for your generosity. That's why we might be a little behind on yours. Hi, Krista Freelance of Canada Trucker fame. Matt and her toured together 12 years ago. I've met him and also have his books. Very nice, but I asked him about her and he never answered. Thanks. Well, thank you, Marilyn. Appreciate that. Sparky says, Bob Dylan said it best concerning the experts. You don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. You don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. That's right. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. Okay. Army J says, Taibbi must spend all night reading and watching every single thing said about him. Narcissistic people do that and argue with straw men. Look, I'm sure a part of him is a little hurt by this, but I do feel like, I do feel like maybe subconsciously, the point of writing that article was to push this segment of the space away because we were annoying by, we were sort of annoying him by wondering when he's going to chime in on this, So if I were his therapist, I would float that to him.
Well, but that's what's crazy. People had given up.
Right. Exactly.
Like a couple of years ago.
Right.
A year ago. Now, if he hadn't brought this up, nobody was bothering him.
Yeah, no one's bothering you. We're all like, yeah, it's kind of a shame what happened over there, but whatever. He'll do his thing. We'll do ours. But when you dip your toes into the conversation and you're not equipped to do it, then, yeah, of course you're going to get pushed back. If you hadn't noticed, people care a lot about this,
Right.
Seeing thousands of images of, like, babies with their heads blown in half, makes people,
makes people hinky.
It's kind of an emotional topic. Race car, thanks for the $20. Appreciate that. Let's see here. Sparky, thanks for the $10. Says people who know better, like Matt Taibbi and Tim Pool, but still sold out to Israel, likely took the money, thinking October 7th will blow over before anyone noticed where they stood. They're stuck. Could be. China Shill says DD is the best show on YouTube. They let me yell at them. Thank you, China Shill. Of course, let you yell.
You're not like a troll.
No, we love China Shill. The late Glenn Ford said the Democrats are the more effective evil. Matt Taibbi has become a more effective journalist. Thank you, Kuznetsky Basane. Ironically, Taibbi left useful idiots and eventually became an actual useful idiot. There we go. Thanks, Sparky. China Shill says, I'm not Michael Tracy, just similarly autistic. All right, well, thanks, China Shill. Michael Ring, thanks for the $10. Appreciate that. Tiffany V says, love your journalism today, on fire. Both of you learning so much. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany. That's very
Appreciate
kind.
that. That is very kind of you to say. Here we go. Not sure what it is in Keaton's psyche that generated the Walter Kern tequila worm metaphor, but here's $5.
That was great.
Thank you.
Keaton has a talent. Keaton has a talent. Raisin-faced Medusa. He's very good
Matt
at those.
liked that
He's
line.
very good at those.
Yeah, exactly. I threw that in as a tribute to Matt. I figure he might, even though he's going to watch this with rage in his eyes, maybe he'll break character and laugh at that.
Yeah,
you know how when you're really pissed off at someone, but they tell you something funny and you laugh and you hate yourself for laughing because, God damn it, I didn't want to give him that.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hoping will happen there. Maybe.
Yeah, at the very least, he has to respect the craftsmanship of
the
that
craftsmanship. Exactly. Well, I respected the craftsmanship of in his article where he called you out. He said the Vanguard guys, between them, they don't have the brains of a skee ball attendant. Like, that's a good line. It's a funny line.
That was
Give
good.
him that. It's funny.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was good.
He's good. He's good. The guy's good. What can we say? Still's got some of it. Doesn't have it all, but still's got some. All right, let's move on along here. So last night, I believe this broke the news. I believe this was the first tweet about this. Francesca Albanese, UN Special Rapporteur of the Palestinian Territory, said breaking main flotilla boat, the family, attacked apparently by a drone in Tunis port. Other 2 boats are on the way to Tunis, and they need urgent protection. So here is a dispatch. Here is activist Yasmin Akhar reports that a drone dropped a bomb directly on the main boat of the Sumud Freedom Flotilla. Let's take a look.
The family boat has been officially attacked. A drone came right above it, released a bomb, and it exploded, and the boat was on fire. Everyone on that boat is okay. The fire is out. But I want to tell you that this boat was the boat that every person from the Madeleine, the old Madeleine crew, was on, which is Greta, me, Tiago, Schweib, and so many more amazing people. They have bombed a boat once again with civilians on it in Tunisian territory. This is an attack against Gaza because they don't want us there. So we need you to mobilize. Let's not stay quiet.
So, you know, I had a sinking feeling, no pun intended, that this might happen because there's such a large fleet of boats that this would be the one where they actually would penetrate the Gaza water space and stuff like that if they had not shown this kind of force. So I was afraid that this might happen, and it did. And thankfully, there have been no casualties. Greta Thunberg flotilla says Gaza aid boat hit by drone attack in Tunisia, reports The Guardian. A flotilla carrying aid for Gaza and pro-Palestinian activists, including Greta Thunberg, says one of its boats has been struck in a drone attack while docked in Tunisia. The global Sumud flotilla shared a video showing one of its boats being hit by a flaming object at Sidi Bou Said port near the Tunisian capital, Tunis. One of the flotilla's main boats was struck by a drone in Tunisian waters, GSF said. The boat is sailing under the Portuguese flag, and all 6 passengers and crew are safe. So this is the press statement that they tweeted out right after that happened, which they are summarizing in the article. Dozens of people gathered at the port after the apparent strike, waving Palestinian flags and chanting "Free Palestine." So here is some of the footage from shore. GSF activists said the vessel, named the Family Boat, had been carrying Thunberg, though she was not on board at the time of the incident. Tunisia's Interior Ministry said reports of a drone hitting a boat in the port have no basis in truth, and that a fire broke out on the vessel itself. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That the one of the Freedom Flotilla boats just happened to catch fire. Now, there were all kinds of reports, which we'll get into a couple of them. One of them said, it's firecrackers. One of them said they were smoking on board. Yeah, that's what happened. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Greta Thunberg was chain smoking while playing poker, and she lost a hand and flipped the table and lit the boat on fire. That's a convincing story.
Reports say they were deep into the sticky icky. They had lit a blunt.
Yeah, right, exactly, yeah.
Too close to the sterno stove.
However, the Portuguese activist Miguel Duarte, who was aboard the vessel, said at a press conference in Tunis on Tuesday that he clearly saw a drone just a few meters above his head moments before an explosion. So yeah, let's take a look at some video. We actually have 2 angles of this. One is with some meme-like commentary here. This is from the Resonance's account. Proof footage from another boat camera showing the strike come from the sky and not a fire from inside the boat. Here it is. Yeah, it's about as obvious as it gets, I would say. And Jake Shields posts a wider angle with the timestamp on it so we could see it. Yeah, pretty obvious. Pretty obviously not an accidental fire lit from on board the vessel. But no, the Israel supporters, the Hasbara, they really gave it their best shot. Breaking, Greta Thunberg claimed her boat was struck by a drone. Tunisian authorities confirm, of course a lie, there was 0 drone activity in the area. Turns out a crew member set off a firecracker and blamed a drone. Another lie added to the long list of Palestinian propaganda. So this was what they were going with.
Yeah, no, that's
what
what they brought on the
they're shooting firecrackers. Shooting off firecrackers from the boat. They make a point over and over and over again that they're carrying no such cargo. I'm sure they have a flare on board for like an SOS in case they are in trouble or something. But that's what they were doing. They were shooting off firecrackers from aboard the Freedom Flotilla. Very believable.
They have sparklers
stuff.
too.
Yeah,
lighting up sparklers.
Yeah, exactly. So here's some more footage from the moment of impact.
Captain! We've been hit by what appears to be a drone and the vessel's on fire! There's a fire in the front deck! We've been hit!
This was live streamed, I guess.
Where's the fire extinguisher? Where's the fire extinguisher?
Yeah.
We have been hit. The vessel is on fire. We are off the coast of Tunis. It was a loud explosion. I was on the top deck. The police are arriving. Patty, it was a massive explosion.
So, pretty brave. Although I got to say, it's unfortunate. He wants us to use exactly the right words when talking about this. He doesn't want to. We have to say exactly the right thing, or else he won't be happy with us, right? Unfortunately, they're very woke. But who's not so woke, and who still makes it a point to chime in on this? This actually caught the attention of Alex Jones to the point where he made an impromptu video. So important. He interrupted his vacation. Here he is live from, I guess, outside the Tyrannosaurus cage at Jurassic Park, deciding to interrupt his time off to make a little video announcement. That's what it looks like. It looks like the Tyrannosaur fence in Jurassic Park. Is he inside or out? I hope he's outside. I hope he's all right. Let's take a look at Alex Jones breaking in with commentary over this.
Palestinian flotilla aid organizers are now reporting that Greta Thunberg's boat that's been trying to get into Gaza for months was hit by a drone and is on fire. There's footage of it. And as much as I dislike Greta Thunberg, she's a total globalist puppet of the WF, she's been acting as an activist and a journalist, and she doesn't deserve to die. This is an unconfirmed report, but it's breaking everywhere right now. And so we pray for all those. And this is just totally disgusting if it is true, like Israel bombing 3 times a hospital a few weeks ago and claiming it was an accident. Israel's literally destroying itself in the eyes of the world. I'm not even anti-Israel. This is just all out of control. Now they want to cleanse ethnically the entire area. Israel's taking it over. It's so disgusting. So Greta Thunberg is a horrible anti-human depopulationist Bill Gates puppet. And I just, A, hope she's alive regardless as humanitarian, but B, she was worthless to the globalists who play the dialectic both sides. If they killed her, they've turned her into a damn martyr. This is just horrible. That's why I'm never for offensive killing, only defensive. Please, God, please say that she's alive.
A goat's tail lands on the camera. Boom, the water starts shaking.
Greta Thunberg is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and I have it on good authority. She's a member of the Illuminati, but God, Jesus, let her be alive.
We'll never hear the end of it if she dies.
Because she doesn't deserve to die, and because we'll never hear the end of it.
No, never hear the end.
Netanyahu, if you really did this, I don't know what to say. You are just something else, man. We all know you run Hamas. We all know Israel funded it. We all know you had a stand down. The idiot low-level Hamas members don't know it, but you know it, and you're the head of Hamas. That's the facts. We pray Greta Thunberg's alive.
Can't believe it.
Ever brought to say this, but it's true.
Can't believe it. Have you ever brought to say we pray Greta Thunberg is alive? So yeah, you've even lost Alex Jones there. Who could see what this was for what it was. So not only is he not interrupting an anti-Israel segment, he's actually going live impromptu to report the news. Yeah, that's how obvious this is. I mean, you try to kill Greta Thunberg. I mean, like, this is what, like, we did the last segment about Hollywood starting to turn against it, like, just so transparently villainous to anybody who's paying a modicum of focus to this. Even someone as apparently compromised as Alex Jones goes out of his way to denounce this, because what he says is true. Yeah, you're destroying yourselves on the world stage. And I had a feeling, I didn't want to say it because you don't even want to put a thought like that into the world. Maybe that's superstitious, but I just didn't even want to say it.
No, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, but I had a feeling they were going to do something because this is a huge fleet. And so they can't just go and individually apprehend every crew on every ship. Some will slip through. So they have to make a huge show of force, but apparently the flotilla is undeterred and will press forward. So they are just remarkably brave. For everyone who tries to poo-poo this as a publicity stunt or this, okay, you fucking board that boat.
You go.
Look what just happened.
Exactly.
You go. So good on them.
Yeah, at this point, it's almost like a psycho in the house situation. Israel is just the mad, rabid dog of countries, and every day its behavior just gets crazier and crazier and more erratic and more dangerous. I kind of share that superstition. In the interest of analysis, I'll say what I think. They are so used to having impunity, and they are so far into their just pathological madness. I mean, it's a country of just deranged psychopaths at this point.
Yeah.
The logic of a normal country would be, yeah, well, I mean, these are all civilians, well-meaning. Yeah, we can't just blow them out of the water. Not this fucking country.
No.
Not this country.
No.
I could definitely see them deciding, once they get close enough, to try to sink a few without killing the people on board in order to deter the rest.
Right. That could happen. That could happen because you're right. They're not normal. And the context of this is important. We say this, we try to say this whenever we cover a flotilla story. Everything about what Israel is doing here is blatantly illegal. First of all, just the occupation itself is illegal. The blockade is illegal. Using starvation as a weapon of war is illegal. Interfering in the affairs of international waters is illegal. So they are committing crime after crime after crime after crime and paying zero price for it whatsoever. So the idea that they have a right to interfere with these vessels is nonsense. These people are on a humanitarian mission to deliver food to starving people who wouldn't be starving in the first place if Israel were not committing a war crime. Very, very simple stuff. Very simple stuff. I hope we're giving a crash course on this issue today for two viewers who might be curious enough
to
be
watching.
Watch.
They probably tuned out at this point, I would imagine.
Exactly. All right. We will keep on going here. We'll do the scroll after this next segment here, but I do want to, what do we got? Yeah, I got to do this one here. All right. So it is Tuesday. Every Monday, a new episode of the Grifters Bible drops over on the El Shaboom's YouTube channel, who is one of our dissident sponsors here. So the Grifters Bible is the mind-bending novel by El Shaboom's, and it's now a free weekly series on YouTube with a soundtrack by Monumental Sonic Architecture. Follow the First Electric Church of Jesus Christ as they combine the bleeding edge of black patented neuroscience with the state-of-the-art in Michigas to beat the Great Recession. They sell visions of God to the huddled masses of Deep Ellum, Texas, and the money pours in until the local competition, the police, and the U.S. Navy decide to put a stop to it. There's ass whoopings, car chases, and a showdown at high noon on Good Friday in Dodge City. It's sci-fi noir. It's a picaresque thriller. It's a Western from 10 minutes in the future. It's the Grifters Bible. It's a film series by El Shaboom's with a soundtrack by Monumental Sonic Architecture. New episode is posted every Monday at youtube.com/El Shaboom. So go over there and smash the subscribe button and catch the latest episode and support our dissident artists and our dissident sponsors. Thank you very much. Weapons is on streaming today. I'm going to watch that.
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah,
wait.
It was good.
I never got to the theater to watch it.
Do you like horror movies?
Oh yeah. Well, I love horror movies. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the genre. I loved his first movie. I loved Barbarian. I was so anxious to see Barbarian that I read all the spoilers, which they told me I shouldn't do, but I did it anyway.
That was good.
That was a fun one, and yeah, this one looks great. So I'm gonna watch that on demand tonight. Looking forward to it after everyone is asleep. All right, what else we got here? And maybe we'll talk about it with Gilgamesh this Sunday.
Yeah.
Clemens 83. The episode of America This Week, a fascinating psychological study of Taibbi and Kirn's cynicism on emotionally supercharged Israel coverage. Kuznetsky Bassane, it's long since been time to stand up and be counted. Thank you. I saw Keaton open up for Jimmy Dore. Just glad I caught his tequila Kirn worm joke here. Really, I love you too. Thank you, Diana. Appreciate that. Army J, Matt Spidey sends for narcissistic a-holes. Must be tingling like crazy. Kirn Taibbi, malignant intellectual gymnastics. Thank you for that, Kuznetsky Bassane. Javier, he went from Matt Habibi to Matt doesn't talk about genocide. Yes, you can use this clever wordplay. I like that, Matt Habibi. That's a good one.
That's pretty good.
Not bad. Just spit my drink out of Keaton's grandfather's story. I think I told that on the air once before, but it was a long time ago, before anyone cared to watch. But yes, that was my memory of 9/11. That was what made me skeptical. I'm like, shouldn't you be at work today? What are you doing? What are you doing here? Thanks for taking a principled stance on Taibbi and his insanely batshit out of touch stances as of late on the greatest moral issue of our time. Not that it needed it, but this is a tremendous boost to your credibility. Thank you. We didn't intend it to be that.
Yeah.
It's just like, look, this was something everybody was chiming in on this. It's not like, we picked it out of a group of stories. That,
I really
50-50.
don't want to do it. And when I found out, I got called out in the article. I was like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, now I got to do
it.
I
really did not want to go back to it. I was like one and done, but it was not to be.
It was not to be. The Rotten Flesh says Brad Pitt is a philanthropist. I'm proud he signed on to Hin's story. Yeah, well, it makes a big difference, especially since these films, even when they do very well and win these accolades, have trouble getting eyes on them. So, a big name endorsement like that is a big draw. Let's see. It has disgusted me, says Tom, this whole time that artists I looked up to in the 80s who did artists against apartheid like Springsteen and Bono have just been running cover for or staying silent on Palestine. Absolutely.
Springsteen's the fucking worst. Yeah. He's the worst with his fucking fake coat and his fake diners and his fucking whole fake persona.
His fake diners. All right, let's keep going here. We got some more Rumble rants. Kit's Corner. Fun fact, Mark Carney and his wife have deep connections with Ghislaine Maxwell and her father. Never understood why other countries stay silent on Epstein. It makes more sense now connecting the dots. Thank you. Albu Kid says, got to say it again. Zionists are so sure they'll be narrating this period in history, including memory hole elimination of current news, that they feel empowered to embrace the worst atrocities. Vito says, and still worlds fail Walter Kirn. Cancer sucks. You guys rock. Thank you, Vito. You rock. EO Shush says, I was leaning on your side until I heard Matt's argument of y'all just jealous haters gonna hate and ain't nobody know who Larry Ellison is. You got owned. Thank you. T-Bone says, Russ and Keaton, kudos Russ and Keaton for calling Matt out. I know it wasn't super easy for you given his support to your channel back in the day. Excuse me, stay true like it is. It's what we want from you two. Always. Yeah, I mean, it's not like if someone says something or like if someone who we know and like and who we've had a good relationship with and who has definitely helped us. I mean, when he came on the show, it was a huge channel.
Yeah. What we have 10,000 subscribers or something?
I think less the first time. The first time was 4 or 5, I think. Yeah, we interviewed him twice.
Yeah,
here
man.
And
Look, I mean, to what I was saying, why I said, I mean, you could tell somebody's vibe. He was always very nice when I met him. And he's always very nice and patient with everyone trying to talk to him. He's not a snob. He'll talk to anybody. He'll take the time, talk to every person who wants to enter, like a Rescue the Republic, man. You have people, they don't have any kind of real operation. And he would give them the time and give them a real interview and not be looking for the exits. He's a nice guy, man. That's part of why this is so troubling. It wouldn't be troubling otherwise.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's because this was a big story in this space. Like everybody was talking about it. So it was an unavoidable story. Like if somebody says something and we don't like it, that's not necessarily an opportunity for us to pounce on them and rip them a new one. Like we won't do that to people who we know and like and we have a rapport with. But if you inject yourself into the space in this way, then we look like we're dodging it if we don't talk about it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So there you go. So Michael Tracy is basically the loser from high school who starts up arguments in social studies class because girls and most guys don't like him. All right. Well, thank you. Ravid Laz, shout out to Matt Kennard, another great journalist and anti-Zionist Jew who had family who suffered through the Holocaust. Yeah, Kennard is great. Absolutely. Nocturnal Human, with as unfunny as Taibbi is, I think he might actually be a Zionist. Thank you. Mark Pugliese, hey, yous. Was the Taibbi we used to see on Eyewitness News related to Matt? Well, his father was a news guy.
His father was with NBC. Was he with NBC?
I think Eyewitness News is ABC, but you may be talking about a similar type program. I know his dad was a news guy.
No, his dad was a journalist. Yeah.
Yeah. Who was like a public figure. If Taibbi suddenly appears with a luscious head of hair, you will know what he sold his soul for. Thank you. Great fucking job on Taibbi, DD. Keep punching up. That's why I love you. Thank you, Fertile Green. Appreciate that.
You.
Matt should send an apology letter to Rachel Maddow. Thank you. EO Shush. Appreciate it. All right. We will wrap up Super Chats and Rumble Rants after this, our final segment of the afternoon.
You didn't have another one? I thought you had another one. Am I making that up?
No, I got Greta, and then it's Hyundai and out. That's it.
Hyundai and out. Boom. Boom. That's how you do it, baby. Okay, so there was a very, very big raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia. There's a brief news report on it to catch you up.
In video released by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Asian workers are seen shackled and getting onto a bus after an ICE raid on a Hyundai Motor car battery facility in Georgia. 300 Koreans were arrested in Thursday's raid, and on Saturday, South Korea's president ordered all-out efforts to swiftly respond. Foreign Minister Chu Hyun told an emergency government meeting that he was deeply concerned by the incident. He said the president, quote, emphasized that in the course of U.S. law enforcement, the rights of our people and the economic activities of South Korean investors in the U.S. must not be unjustly infringed upon. Thursday's arrest of some 475 workers, including over 300 Koreans, at the plant near Savannah was the largest single-site enforcement operation in the U.S. Department of Homeland Security's history.
Now, this, by the way, this video, this is from a video that was put out by ICE. They pulled a Bukele. They put out a video showing how awesome an operation this was. It's like 2 minutes and 20-second video of them rousting Korean workers and bringing them out of lakes they were hiding in, this kind of thing.
Special agent in charge of Homeland Security investigations in Georgia and Alabama said in a Saturday statement, quote, this operation sends a clear message that those who exploit the system and undermine our workforce will be held accountable. But the arrests could deepen tensions between Washington and Seoul, a key ally and investor in the U.S. The countries have been at odds over the details of a trade deal that includes $350 billion of investments. At a summit last month, South Korea pledged $150 billion in U.S. investments, including $26 billion from Hyundai Motor.
Okay, and here's what Donald Trump and Secretary Ducklips had to say about this.
And, you know, when they're building batteries, if you don't have people in this country right now that know about batteries, maybe we should help them along and let some people come in and train our people to do, you know, complex things, whether it's battery manufacturing or computer manufacturing or building ships. So we're going to look at that whole situation. We have a lot of industries that we don't have anymore, and we're going to have to train people. And the way you train people is bring people in that know what they're doing and let them stay for a little while and help. So I'm going to look at that. It's a very interesting situation that took place in Georgia. And we heard about it yesterday. At the same time, ICE was doing right because they were here illegally. But we do have to work something out where we bring in experts so that our people can be trained so that they can do it themselves. Does that make sense?
Well, people that are in this country illegally need to know right now today that they have an opportunity to go home before they are detained. So many of those individuals that were detained through that operation in Georgia, we are following the law. They are going to be deported. A few of those had criminal activity beyond just being here past final removal orders, and they will face the consequences for that. I think President Trump's message was powerful. His message today that he sent to the world was, listen, our laws will be enforced, and we're encouraging all companies who want to come to the United States and help us our economy and employ people, that we encourage them to employ U.S. citizens and to bring people to our country that want to follow our laws and work here the right way.
Madam Secretary, what about these 6 dead dogs around the perimeter fence? Couldn't be avoided.
I like how they encourage employers to employ U.S. citizens. They talk like puppy dogs about the employers. They don't go after them. They got a lot of harsh words for the workers, but for the employers, hey, we encourage you to hire U.S. citizens.
Well, that's where you know this is all a sham. Like you, instead of arresting all of these people and building all the facilities involved, you just arrest like 6 bosses that'll put the fear into all the rest of them.
Exactly.
That's it.
That's it.
You're done.
That's it.
Done.
No. They don't want to do that. They want to encourage them to hire Americans.
Well, they want something to distract people for while they build an automated future.
Right. They need the jails is what they need.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That you don't belong in. So here's Trump truthed this out. Following the immigration enforcement operation on the Hyundai battery plant in Georgia, I am hereby calling on all foreign companies investing in the United States to please respect our nation's immigration laws. Your investments are welcome. Well, I'm sure they're going to be pouring in now. And we encourage you to legally bring your very smart people with great technical talent to build world-class products. And we will make it quickly and legally possible for you to do so. What we ask in return is that you buy my dodgy crypto products. Is that you hire and train American workers. Together, we will all work hard to make our nation not only productive, but closer in unity than ever before. Thank you for your attention to this matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so this is the thing about this. This is from Christopher Webb. Something folks are missing here. This raid wasn't about illegals taking American jobs. It was about ICE storming the Hyundai LG battery plant in Georgia, part of a $7.6 billion meta plant project that isn't even operational yet. They dragged out more than 300 South Korean engineers and specialists, people flown in to stand the place up so it could eventually employ thousands of Georgians/Americans. This plant wasn't scheduled to start running until late 2025 or early 2026. These workers weren't taking jobs. They were building the factory that would create one. Now, I cannot confirm that. We do know this is a battery plant that was not operational. So these workers, by definition, were constructing the plant. Now, could you have it doesn't look like that's really in dispute. So if the issue is, could you have used Americans instead to build the plant? I suppose so. But, clearly, especially if you're in the middle of getting this country to put billions of dollars into the United States, maybe if they were just there to build the place so that Americans could work in it, you could kind of let that one go, maybe, instead of creating an international incident. So a little more on the reaction in South Korea.
175 individuals detained on Thursday. This was during one of the largest immigration raids in recent history.
Yeah, there are the people who pretty much are trying to convey, Victor, throughout South Korea that they understand that immigration law needs to be upheld. They understand to a degree that side of the equation. But if you put yourself in the shoes of the South Koreans who are going to the United States to try to help out President Trump's vision of making American industry great again, I think people are astonished here, Victor, that even if there were visa irregularities for more than 300 South Koreans, what you've heard here in Seoul and throughout South Korea over the weekend is pretty much the following, that even if there were visa violations, how about authorities in the United States coming to this plant and saying, hey, we think that XYZ is wrong? Instead, there is an astonished and floored feeling that people have looking at this video released from ICE, seeing fellow South Korean citizens with chains around their waists led away in handcuffs. When you're talking about a key American ally right next door to China in this critical part of the world that's trying to help out American industry, I cannot stress enough to our American audience and people watching around the world the feeling of betrayal that is emanating from all corners of South Korean society. So to wrap up where we're going here, we don't know when exactly this plane is leaving from Seoul, how long it's going to take to get all 300 plus people onto the plane and back home. We're trying to wrap up our reporting when we're going to be able to talk to the people who were detained by ICE, asking them what exactly it was.
Okay. This is what I voted for. This is what I voted for. Okay, so I can't confirm this. Seems like it's true. It's worth addressing what she says here, though. My take on this will be nuanced, I promise. So as Brian Allen posted this, the woman who triggered the ICE raid at Hyundai is now running for office. She got 475 Korean workers arrested by screaming illegals on TikTok. Turns out they were subcontractors flown in for construction. Now, I don't know if that's what got the raid going. I don't think he's making it up, especially given this video that she made. No proof they were undocumented, and that is true. They haven't released any proof that there were any visa violations or anything. And now they're being flown back to Korea. Just one racist with a phone and a thirst for attention. Well, that's his opinion. We will see. So let's hear what she has to say.
The crock of shit I've heard so far since the Hyundai plant in Elabella, Georgia was raided was that the Koreans and the illegals will do jobs that Americans can't do or won't do. Well, that's bullshit, because there were union workers out there who weld, who are safety certified, who are skilled, who those people for decades have built this country. The union and laborers built this country, but they don't want to pay skilled American laborers that are safety certified because it costs them too much. They want to hire illegal labor and people on H-1B visas from foreign countries because they save money. Yet they give them millions of dollars in tax cuts for allegedly creating jobs for Georgians. That never happens. But they shit all over our skilled laborers because they would have to pay them more, even though they are skilled and safety certified. They would rather pay a $150,000 OSHA lawsuit like they did with the guy that died on the forklift out there. That place was one big accident waiting to happen. So the contractors, the corporations will hire illegal labor over Americans, not because Americans won't do the job. It's because the Americans are skilled, safety certified, and they know their worth. So they would rather just pay these OSHA lawsuits when people die. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, hey, listen, I've said throughout all of this, I've been in industries where the native-born workers got pushed out by illegal workers. I come from the kind of neighborhood where a lot of people go into construction. My best friend was a general contractor who, as time went on, it was harder and harder for him to support his family because he couldn't afford to offer the job for what illegal people working off the books were charging. So I'm not saying what she's saying there is untrue. Like, yeah, like why did they bring in 300 Koreans to build this place. Like, you can't say you don't have enough skilled. It's a this is not like with farm work,
right?
Where you're really like generations removed from having mass amounts of Americans. I'm not saying no Americans know how to do that, but from having like enough Americans to replace all of the non-Americans who are doing that work.
Right.
We're quite removed from Americans knowing how to do that kind of day-to-day backbreaking farm labor. This isn't like that. Like, you want to make the argument you could bring in skilled American workers who could build a plant. Of course you could. So there is a point there. Handling it this way, these guys love the theatrics of rounding people up, and they love the theatrics of overkill because it's for their base. I mean, it largely is a distraction because, as we were just saying, okay, I don't necessarily disagree with what you're saying. Arrest the employer. Arrest the employer. Like, what's this whole thing for? And if you're in the middle of getting South Korea, just on a logistical level, if you're trying to get South Korea and other countries to put billions of dollars in here, was that the best way to handle it?
Right.
Like, you couldn't have called the prime minister of South Korea and handled it that way. I mean, I bet he'd pick up the phone for the president. Instead, you put on this big dog and pony show and created an international embarrassment for South Korea. Does that jeopardize, especially you're trying to reindustrialize the United States? That's really the issue. I don't think she's necessarily wrong in what she's saying. Like, why didn't they hire Americans to build this plant? But as with a lot of this, it's the way they're going about it. It's just not smart. It's not good. It's not good. So case in point, how Hyundai raid could backfire on Trump. President Trump's push for more foreign investment in America may face new hurdles after the United States stunned allies last week by arresting hundreds of South Korean workers at a battery manufacturing plant in Georgia in the administration's largest immigration raid yet. Quote, allies are receiving mixed signals. The South Korea case has made countries like Japan and even EU nations nervous, said Andrew Yao, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. The Trump administration probably wanted shock value to teach other countries a lesson, but the timing and optics look terrible, Yao added. U.S. and South Korean officials worked quickly over the weekend to reach a deal to release the more than 300 South Korean workers swept up in the raid on the plant, a joint venture between Hyundai Motor Company and LG Energy Solution. South Korea said Sunday an agreement was made to release the detainees and fly them back to the country. The immigration status of the South Korean workers who were arrested was still unclear days after the raid. The operation, which resulted in the detention of roughly 475 workers, was the largest immigration enforcement action taken by U.S. officials since the start of Trump's second term. A spokesperson for Hyundai referred Newsweek to a public statement in which the automaker said that none of the workers detained in the raid are direct employees of Hyundai. Quote, Hyundai is committed to full compliance with all laws and regulations in every market where we operate. This includes employment verification requirements and immigration laws, Hyundai said in the statement. The plant is operated by a separate entity called HGLA Battery Company, and Hyundai does not directly employ any of the workers at the facility, according to a source who agreed to speak on background to discuss the details of the plant's ownership structure. Experts said Trump's immigration policies may hinder his economic goals as foreign and U.S. companies alike grapple with workplace raids, slow job growth, and lingering uncertainty over the president's tariff policy. The immigration raid in Georgia will likely have, quote, some kind of chilling or deterring effect, or at least give people pause on the type of investments the Trump administration says it wants, said Colin Grabow, a trade expert at the Cato Institute. Okay, so I can't be sure, but looking at that, looking at what we know, yeah, it looks like Hyundai probably offers a very low ball price to some subcontractor to stand up the factory, and the subcontractor, to make that profitable, brings in illegal labor at a price that Americans won't work at. Like, I think that's probably what happened here. Yeah, that could have been handled with a phone call, man. Like, why do this when you're trying to persuade countries to invest in America and to build factories? Why terrorize them like that? Like I don't think you're wrong to have the goal of like, and I want these factories to get built in America to be built by Americans. I don't think that's a wrong goal, but this is definitely not the way to go about it.
Well, yeah, well, it's what goes back to what you said. They have no concept of soft power. They have no concept of the appeal of goodwill. like no, absolutely no conception of like, hey, what if we present as chill and cool and nice? Maybe that'll go further than to do it this way. And look, I mean, this whole theater of this crackdown is what they traffic in. It's funny, like you see this as kind of a pattern over and over again on this like quote unquote populist right. You especially see this in like the medical field now with like the medical freedom movement. This very deep skepticism of big pharma, which is mostly on the right because of COVID and all that stuff. Going up to, I would say, like the 15-yard line, but never making the obvious connection that, look, if you don't socialize the healthcare system, big pharma is always going to win. They're always going to win. There's no way to take big pharma down, in this sort of piecemeal kind of way. You have to overhaul the system entirely. So to have this critique of, well, okay, yeah, no, they'd rather bring in Koreans to build the factories and pay them less and deal with less regulation and red tape because, they're less likely, far less likely, if not 0% chance that they're going to file any kind of OSHA complaint. Yeah, I mean, you're walking right up to realizing that this is a system of exploitation that benefits capitalists at the expense of an underclass of workers. Yet where is the crackdown on the capitalist class? Where is the revolt against the capitalist? Like, what does that never come? Is the solution just to beat up on other workers and take such pride in the fact that they got rousted? Like, what do you actually do to change that dynamic? At the end of the day, it all kind of falls short of that. Right, because they don't actually have the final analysis to make that final connection, which is that, yeah, whatever you feel about this, look, the workers and the immigrants are not at fault for this. It's the people who try to skirt wage regulations, safety regulations, and cut as many corners as they can to get the thing built as fast and cheaply as possible.
Right. Well, that is why they did it this way instead of calling the prime minister of South Korea. It's a distraction.
Right.
They want you to feel like this is giving you power and this is for you, when really it's a distraction so that you don't come for them.
Exactly.
Why doesn't anyone ask the obvious question? Where are the employers in handcuffs?
Right.
That gives
exactly.
away the game.
Why didn't they get arrested?
There. Right. They didn't need to hire all these ICE people.
Right.
They didn't need to build all these prisons. How many CEOs are there?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. All right, folks. Well, what just happened here? Google Chrome is accessing my screen. Yeah, I know it is. Thank you for that. All right. Well, hey, if you like what we do here and you want to help us do more of it, your membership really goes a long way towards that. The links are all up on the screen. DueDissidence.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. All of those membership plans start at just $5 a month. You get all kinds of bonus content, including call-in access to our weekly Q&As, film club live streams, post-game live streams with Q&As. Once a month, we do an extended show for the patrons, complete with a talk back. You also get ad-free replays of every live stream the day after they air publicly. So if you miss something when we're live and you want to watch the show back without the ad interruptions, you can do so by signing up. Patreon.com/Due Dissidence. We give you, like I said, today's live stream the next day after it airs, a full ad-free replay, just as if you're watching it live. It helps tremendously to support all of the projects and all of the work that we do. You will also get a credit at the end of our upcoming Uhuru documentary. We put all our patrons in the end credits of the Jose doc, and we will have a much longer list to boast at the end of this next film. So that's another cool little perk of membership. Thank you all very much, of course, for your continued support. All right, let's go to some more Rumble rants. Bonzo Bean said, Russ, what would be your first custom-made holosuite program?
Ooh, that's a good one. Wow. My first holosuite program. Woodstock. That would be interesting.
There you go.
That would be an interesting holosuite program.
With Michael Tracy, thou dost protest too much. With Matt Taibbi, thou dost protest too little. Thank you for that. V. Nettlesbaum, appreciate that. Mark Pugliese says, what a flaming douche this Kern guy is. Raymond Fernandez, in the end, I blame his Svenjali Walter Kern. Matt's in thrall to that dude because of his Jimmy Breslin studs Turkle manner, but it's just manner. He has nothing in common with either. Part 2 of that is Kern's just an Oxford-educated elite, an unreformed old-school Leo Straussian neocon and Zionist POS, playing the part of Montana man of the people. Interesting. Thank you, Ramon. Appreciate that.
Look. I'll be honest. I never actually watched it. Wow.
Yeah, it's rough. It's rough. Holy shit, boys! Clip this Taibbi Seg ASAP. Pure fire. Thanks, Mark Pugliese. We'll get it out. Get it out in the morning. We still got our other one to watch in the meantime. The first one. It's Vito P. Okay, Russell, come on back and I'll reserve our table at Emo's. Cancer sucks, you guys. Rock, thank you.
I'm sure they're looking forward to having us.
Yes, they want to have us back, of course. New Joma, Nelson Mandela also spoke out about the armed struggle when no other options are available. Goo81 says Israel forces Palestinians to close stores on Sabbaths. T-Bone, he is more tipped to keep playing the Matt Taibbi takedown hits. Can't get enough. Please do Russell Brand next. He's just...
I've done him plenty.
Yeah, we've done him plenty.
I've done that a lot.
Yeah, we've done a few of those.
So we call him the Eggman.
The Eggman, that's right. The Eggman and the Worm Man. T-Bone, he is more... sorry, got that one already. Gilgamesh, mutated tequila worm. Keaton's bars of fury are always awesome. LOL. Russ, love your retort to Taibbi's deflection. Catching up on DD with my 7-hour drive home down California. You all the best. Oh, drive safe.
Cool.
Appreciate that. That's a pretty drive. It's a great drive. Xander Varkov, Kurt does not like Fuentes because there's a lot of evidence suggesting he's an informant on J6, a honeypot, fan of the playground defender, among many things. Check out YouTuber Mikey Namor's doc on him. All right, that'll be interesting tomorrow. China Shill says Michael Tracy has never served in the IDF. He's not even Jewish. That person is smoking crack. Okay, yeah, it did seem a little strange.
Yeah, I was like, because I would think we would have heard about that.
Yes.
With the stance he's taken, people would have been all over that.
People would have mentioned that, yeah. Taibbi's Vampire Squid piece was an all-time great. Yeah, it was. What he's become is profoundly disappointing. In other news, the Venice Film Festival apparently takes place in my elementary school lunchroom. Thanks, Killer Yitten. No Israel at Olympics, Sarah Cousteau. Yeah, that should be. Monkey Rotary, don't worry. Barry will explain how the fire is anti-Semite and is trying to redeem itself. Let's see. Stoop sign. Those juice boxes are making the dinosaurs gay. Greta is a non-gendered pollen goblin spawn, but please keep this spawn which locks both penis and vagina alive. Good one, Stoop sign. Boycott Olympics if Israel is not banned. So is the age of Aquarius over yet, says Eric Rousseau. Mark Dansky, thanks to you both today. I've been suffering through moral cowardice arguments with political theater friends who are turgid liberals and genocide deniers. You've shown me the way. Cut to the bone. Well, thanks, Mark. Appreciate that.
Fuck yeah.
We weren't supposed to piss off the Asians yet until we're done with the brownies. Jump the gun on the divide and conquer strategy. Yes, thank you, T-Bone. Appreciate that.
Yeah, but you notice they get a flight home, not the C-cut.
That's true. That's true. Americans complain about employers not paying enough for jobs while at the same time being against the living wage. We would work if they paid more, but don't pay anyone more. Exactly. Good point.
Hang on. So Greg says here, yeah, I could be, man. I could be. Like, I know as much as what was in that segment, basically. So he says I'm wrong. There's the factory startup, not build. I mean, it's possible.
Okay. As a Taibbi fan, this helps. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Jackie P. Who the fuck is Walter Kern, and why is he the same Ziopos as Glenn Beck? He's a novelist, right? That's what he is. He writes.
He's a novelist.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote Up in the Air.
Up in the Air. That's right. R.E. What's eating Taibbi? Please watch the video with Bree and Glenn. Glenn very much seems to know what's up, but won't say. Interesting. I think I saw that, actually. Bonzo Kilborn says they're making the Brontosauruses gay. Courage. Thank you. Max Level, thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate that very much. Matrix says,
I got raped by a raptor last night.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. They attacked from the sides. Trump cheats.
The one distracted me. The other stuck it right in.
They get you right in the ears. One on each side. Obese Dragonfly says, thanks for the $50. Appreciate that. Been a Patreon member for a while, but mostly listen to the podcast version of the show. Could we get a premium podcast feed that includes the post-show Q&A and possibly Misty Winston show? Keep killing it, guys. Yeah, I have to talk to Spotify about the Misty Winston show because their back end is a little bit not set up for like multiple shows on a channel, which is more inside baseball than probably you need to know. A little complicated, but the other stuff, yeah, we could probably make that work. I tend to not put the Q&A on the main podcast feed because it makes the episodes like 5 hours, right? So that's like the after show on Rumble. But yeah, we could probably work something like that out. Thank you for that. Appreciate that, Obese Dragonfly. Oops, what did I do? No, I got everything. All right. Sparky. Normally with technical tasks in the U.S. involving South Korean contractors, the contractors are hired as a team who already work together and can jump in running. They're paid well, but finish 4 times faster. Khalil Sheikh. Sorry about that. Says Dr. Shiva claims Taibbi didn't expose Twitter files, and then it was actually revealed through Shiva's court case against Twitter. Oh, I would love to. We should have him.
Yeah, we should have him on.
Yeah, finally. Sparky says, I think my cousin did the excavation work for that factory. I remember telling him that it's good he doesn't have that part of the projects, so he gets paid before the project fails or otherwise goes broke. Thank you, Sparky. Appreciate that. Thanks for that. All right. Well, hey, that is our show. We are going to reach out to Misty to see what's going on with the show tomorrow. She is having a pretty dire family health situation, so we wish the best to Misty over there, and we will find out what's going on tomorrow. But we are kind of taking that week to week for now, and we'll maybe adjust the schedule if we have to, because it is very difficult stuff she's going through. So hearts in the chat for Misty, please, both on Rumble and on YouTube. Thank you all for that. Thank you to the mods for keeping the peace in the chats. Thanks to the YouTubers. Thanks to the Rumblers. Thanks to everybody for spending your afternoon with us. We are off tomorrow. Misty Winston show maybe tomorrow night. We'll have to check up with her after the show today. And then we will be back Thursday, 12 p.m. Eastern. Appreciate you all being here with us. Hope you enjoyed the show. Pleasure to see you as always. We'll see you Thursday, midday. Until then, be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.